Hey folks, how's everybody doing out there? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. What's going on? And we are doing our very last live stream of 2020. And what a year it was, hey folks. Very crappy year. I think we're all in agreement about that. So this stream, I'm going to keep this a little more free and open. I want to talk a little bit about the pandemic, a little bit about what's in the news. And then the last half of this will just be sort of free-form BSing and answering comments. There is a couple of comments that people left on my channel that I want to also review and, speak to. But we'll do that later. Yeah, so before we start, let's take a look at what we've got so far. So this is our kind of disgusting monster wall looking thing here. Right. And I think it's looking pretty good. It's I don't know. I don't really have a plan for this. So I think we'll continue on with this for a little while, next couple of streams, and then maybe we'll move on to something else once this starts getting boring. So let's see, folks. Big stuff happening out there, as always. It seems like, the one thing that I think we can all agree about 2020 is that it definitely wasn't a slow news year. There was a lot of shit going on every week. Just it seemed like, you know what I think it was? I think, it seemed like there were so many little crises going on all the time, constantly, that you don't get a lot of rest. You know what I mean? So we start the year off with a freaking impeachment, right? That's how we started 2020. We started 2020 by impeaching the president of the United States. Seems like a million years ago, doesn't it? When that happened. Seriously, doesn't it? Doesn't it seem like that happened like 5 years ago or some shit? But no, that was January of this year. The impeachment proceedings against Trump for basically getting the Ukrainians to withholding aid from the Ukrainians in order to dig up dirt on Joe Biden for the election. Kind of funny how we all forgot about that. You know what I mean? Once they voted to not, convict, which we all kind of knew they were going to. And it's kind of funny how, when the election actually came, that's exactly what they tried to use. They tried to use dirt on Joe Biden that, in this case, a made-up bullshit story about Hunter Biden and a laptop with emails and all this other shit. Kind of funny how that story just disappeared after the election, isn't it? It was all over conservative media and Fox and all these other places right before the election. And then suddenly Trump loses. No one gives a shit about, Joe Biden's son anymore. That's just completely went away. Gee. It's almost like it's, it was made up horseshit, put together to smear Biden with, kind of like and to motivate people to go vote, through using fear and hatred, kind of the same way that those immigrant caravans from 2018, remember those things? Remember the caravans, how they were like these columns of immigrants, illegal immigrants, miles long, that were going to come and just overrun the border guards and break in the United States and steal your job and sell you tacos. Remember that shit? And then suddenly after the midterms in 2018, all that went away. No one ever talked about that ever again. It was gone, Gee, I wonder why. So, yeah, that is how the year started. We started with an impeachment of the president, and then that quickly got overshadowed by a pandemic. A pandemic which was handled incredibly badly, you remember, how many people are dead now? Let's just take a quick look before we go on. Let's just go over here, because we should talk about this in every stream until everybody's vaccinated, and then we don't have to talk about it anymore. Coronavirus deaths. Let's take a quick Google on that. The cool thing about it is that you can just go straight to Google and get all of this stuff. Wrong monitor, sorry. You can just go straight to Google and you can go show all, and it'll show you all of the deaths. You know, how many people died, let's see, on the 23rd, 3,411. Yesterday, Christmas, let's see, how many died on Christmas? Oh, not that many, only 1,000, you know, on Christmas. Or what was it, 1,129? Oh, okay, well, that's a good, nice little Christmas gift there. Only 1,000 people died from it. So far, in the entire country, 333,000. That's, I think we'll probably hit 340 before the end of the year. And then, you know, we're averaging about 1,500 a day. So that might even push us very close to 400,000 by the time Donald Trump leaves office, right? Yeah, that's the story that just refuses to die, the gift that keeps on giving. Let's not forget how badly the people in office blew that, you know. Remember back in the day, back earlier this year when, you know, the Republicans and everybody was just telling us it's just like the flu, you got nothing to worry about. Oh, we only have 24 cases in the country. Remember that? Remember back when Donald Trump didn't want to allow those people that were on that cruise ship, you know, to like enter the country. You know, he wanted to keep them isolated on that cruise ship because, you know, it would double the number of cases. Remember that stuff? You know, remember when he said that, yeah, we should inject bleach into ourselves? Or remember when he tried to, like, pimp hydroxychloroquine or whatever the fuck that was, fishbowl cleaner, in order to get rid of this stuff? You know, it seemed like, gee, and there was only a couple of thousand deaths by that point, you know. Seems like that was, you know, so long ago, doesn't it? Doesn't it seem like that was like 5 years ago? Right? When people were talking about that stuff. You know, when we only had 10,000 people who have died. You know, when we only had, you know, 200,000 infections. All right. Right now in the United States, we have 19 million total cases. Ridiculous. 20 million people, basically, have been infected with this shit. You know, 300,000 of them are dead. You know, what do you think would they be saying right now if, let's say, this happened in 2015 and, you know, 2016, right? Or even, let's say 2012. Let's say, what do you think would have happened if this happened in 2012 and Barack Obama was up for re-election in 2012? Do you think he would have won the election? No. Right? Is it really that big of a surprise that Donald Trump got his ass beat in this election? No. You know, I don't know. I was just watching this video right now of Caitlin Bennett, the you know, she's the poop girl from Liberty Hangout, right? Going to a Trump rally and even like recently, this was like within the last week. Oh shit, sorry, hit the light. Going to a Trump rally and talking to people about how and how everybody's saying that he shouldn't resign and all this other crap. And the election was stolen and all this other baloney. And you're just like, man, like, how does that shit make any sense? Why would you think that somebody who presided over the deaths of 330,000 people from an easily preventable disease, how do you think, you know, that guy would get reelected? It doesn't make any sense. Right? Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of how we started the year off. We started the year off with an impeachment and then a pandemic. And then what was the other big story this year? Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter was a really big, you know, and they've been around for a few years now. I think Black Lives Matter started in, what, 2016, you know, 2015, something like that. Kind of came to prominence in 2017 when they started, you know, having protests against Confederate statues, that kind of thing, right? That's when it started to kind of take off. And really, 2017 really was sort of the year that they came to national prominence, right? And that continued into this year. Continued into this year with the the George Floyd protests, things like that. And it's funny how the George Floyd protests stopped being about George Floyd and started being about basically fighting against the system. In the media at least, it became sort of like a you know counter-revolution sort of thing, and all you heard about for like 3 or 4 months in the media was about how these like insane leftist Marxist commies were burning down cities and shit like that, you know, which is kind of fucked up, and that was kind of bad how the message got lost because of all of that. Ultimately, do I think Black Lives Matter is a successful movement? I think it's mixed. I think that it's become more about them. The movement, Black Lives Matter, has become more about them and less about the message. And I think that's a problem. I think it needs to be more about the message, because what's happened is that basically the right wing has demonized them. And, and it's done a lot to polarize things. And here's the thing about that, right? I don't think that was avoidable. I don't think there was any way that we could have avoided what happened. We couldn't have. I don't think there was any way, rather, for Black Lives Matter to go out and protest and not polarize people, right? And in that kind of respect, it's like maybe we need a little bit of that polarization, right? Because what are you fighting for, right? What does Black Lives Matter? What are they fighting for, right? Equality, fair representation under the law, right? Which is what we're all supposed to have anyway. We're all supposed to have equal protection under the law. I guess that's what it is, right? Black people don't have that in this country. It's pretty fucking obvious, right? Pretty obvious even to like the most racist, backwoods fucking, sister humping Trump supporter that black people do not have equal representation under the law here, right? So that's what they're kind of fighting for, and they're also fighting for a better future for their children and that kind of thing. A country that they don't have to worry about getting blown away when a cop pulls them over for a speeding ticket, that kind of thing, right? And that I think that message kind of got lost, and I think that was due in part to the framing of right-wing media. Framing all of Black Lives Matter as just a bunch of rioters and looters and stuff like that. And that's something that we kind of have to keep in mind. If you're going to go out and you're going to protest and shit like that, you should really try to keep the property damage down as much as possible. There have been a group of leftist protesters, the black bloc, the anarchists, the guys that go out and like smash up Starbucks and shit like that, right? There's always been those guys. They've always kind of been around for a little bit, But I don't even really think they were to blame this time, this summer when we're talking about Black Lives Matter. I don't even think they were like, I mean, yeah, those people were there, stuff like that, I think really what it is was that, they took, I think what happened is that, say, conservative outlets like Fox, conservative, insane sort of media grifters like Tim Pool, guys like that. I think they took footage of the worst parts of these protests and shared them around, right? And kind of just created this narrative that this was happening across all of the different cities in the country, right? Because that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing when I go on Reddit and I like, because I go on Reddit to like argue with conservatives and shit. It's like a hobby. That's something I do for fun. I go on like, some of the seedier parts of Reddit, things like actual public freakouts and like, that kind of thing. And I go to like Trump supporting subreddits and conservative subreddits, and I argue with people until they ban me, and then I make another account and I go back because it's fun, right? It's fun to troll conservatives. And, this is what I'm seeing, right? I'm seeing this narrative that over the summer Black Lives Matter burned down America, And it's like not even close to what actually happened. That's just not what happened. In real life, yeah, there were protests. Some of them got out of hand, right? And maybe there were fires, shit like that. But it wasn't like every major city in the fucking country burned down. No. Even those cities where it was the worst, Portland, right? I think we can all agree Portland was the kind of ground zero for Black Lives Matter, right? Portland, Oregon, and then you had like the CHOP, in Seattle. Even in those places, it's like the cities are fine, like Portland, Oregon, it's kind of confined to like a downtown area. And yeah, some businesses got boarded up, stuff like that, you know. But it's not like the entire fucking city just like caught fire and burned down and a million people died. It's like, no, man, there was, protests getting messy, right? Especially when you get like a bunch of Proud Boys and shit showing up and fighting people, that kind of thing. Shit gets violent, right? And, things happen, and then occasionally there's, there were a couple of fires, that kind of thing. And yeah, violence is bad, and we should not condone or encourage violence, especially when it comes to property damage. But if you think about it, property damage is like not as bad as murder. Right? I mean, that's the thing that these people are fighting against. They're fighting against murder. They're fighting against, racist, institutions which result in the deaths of people. Okay? So, if you want to look at it from a pure sort of moral perspective, which one's worse? Right? Throwing a rock at a fucking, throwing a rock at a police station and breaking a window, or shooting a guy 7 times in the back when he tries to get his driver's license. Like, which, seriously, I don't really see, how you can even compare those things. But this is the narrative that we're seeing on the right. And so, so like I said, I think that was unavoidable. I think any pushback against the kind of system we have with any pushback against institutional racism in this country is going to result in that kind of polarization, right? And and I think we kind of saw that with the Colin, Kaepernick thing, whatever that guy's name is, the guy that kneeled, right? The football player that kneeled during the national anthem. Remember that guy? I don't think that was this year. I think that was a couple years ago. But do you remember the reaction to him when he tried, because that is an example of a nonviolent protest, kneeling during the national anthem, right? And it's mostly even non-political. He didn't really say anything in that protest, He came out later and said, oh, it was because of, police shootings against black people, blah, 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 right? But just not standing for the pledge. That simple act right there caused just as much polarization as, Antifa does. Right? And it's sort of like, okay, well, this is what happens when you try to do a peaceful protest, right? When you try to do a protest that doesn't result in any property damage, that doesn't confront people, I guess is what it is, right? So when you do one that actually does confront people, it's like it's gonna do the same thing. Well, what are you supposed to do? That's the whole point of a protest, really, is to force people to, deal with what you're saying. That's the whole point of protesting things. You don't go and protest something nicely. Oh, will you please not shoot me, Mr. Officer? Pretty please with sugar on top. No, because that doesn't do shit, That's the whole point of, because they're just going to laugh at you and shit's not going to change. No, protesting necessitates an element of breaking the law, right? That's the kind of the point, That's the point why people go and protest. They get themselves arrested, right? That's the point of protesting is to force the authorities to deal with you. And then that means they got to drag you before a judge. And then the judge has to say, why were you out there doing this and this? And it's like, well, I was expressing my, freedom of speech right to blah, 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 right? They can't throw you in jail for that. They have to prove you were doing some other shit. Okay, well, you were protesting, here and you were rioting or some shit. They have to prove that you were rioting. They can't just be like, okay, well, you were at this protest and holding a sign, whatever, and you're going to jail for 20 years. No, that's not how it works. So, and that's why like 99% of people who get busted and arrested at protests end up getting the charges dropped, because it's not really about throwing them in jail, because arresting protesters is just a tactic to shut down the protest, right? And people know it. Well, the more they arrest you, the more it costs, more money it costs the city, shit like that. So it's like, what are they going to do? Like arrest 50,000 people? Like, no, that's, so these are all, we can talk about this, actually, I don't know, maybe we should do a stream about this, like, the strategy behind protests, right? Protest movements and tactics and strategy, that kind of thing, right? But anyway, so that was the big major story kind of over the summer, and I really think, one more thing on Black Lives Matter before we move on to the election. I really think it did a lot to scare the bejesus out of, white Christian America, right? I think it really did. I think that, and it was because their conservative media used it as basically a money-making endeavor, right? That's what they did. There's nothing like national strife, right? In order to get those butts in the chair, watching your newscast every night to see what burned down next, right? And I really think that's kind of why they really went nuts with it. The Fox Newses and the OANs and the, people like Tim Pool and all those other fucking, Steven Crowder and all those assholes, right? Really just jumped on top of that, and characterized it as this like insane, sort of revolutionary Marxist movement, when in real life it's like not even anything close to that, right? Not really, and I think that scared the shit out of people, right? And now it's sort of like, let me see. It's sort of like the country is polarized even more, than it was, but at the same time, it's sort of like the mask is off now. I think that's a positive thing, a positive result through all of this. There was in previous years, previous election cycles, things like that. There's always been this sort of veneer of respectability that the conservatives and the Republicans would try to hang on to. And they would sort of do things like cloak racist policies in nice, sort of neutral language, right? And this kind of goes back to the Southern strategy a little bit. You don't talk about segregation. You talk about forced busing, for example, right? Something like that. Can you guys even see what I'm drawing here? I think I'm drawing off of the camera. Yeah, you can't even see it, can you? I'm like drawing over here, but it's like off the camera. So let me move that around. Or you don't talk about, you talk about tax cuts, but the things that you cut disproportionately harm, communities of color, that kind of thing, right? And that's kind of how it's stayed. You talk about inner city policing and this sort of thing, and these are policies that end up hurting communities of color, either like financially or, oppressing them somehow, or, even, Democrats would get in on this shit, the crime bill that, Hillary Clinton's crime bill or whatever, right? That, Joe Biden signed on to and actually wrote pieces of, I think, right? You got to remember, they're actually somewhat conservative too. Hillary Clinton is actually pretty conservative. Joe Biden is actually used to be a lot more conservative than he seems like he's a lot more centrist nowadays, right? But back in the 80s and the 90s and shit, he seemed a lot more conservative, So, where am I going with this? Well, now it seems like the mask is off, you know, especially when it comes to just straight up, the Republicans, they've sort of taken it all. They've taken it all off, and it's because their base has gone so far right that the flowery sort of hidden language where you don't say the quiet parts out loud isn't cutting it anymore for the base. So now you're starting to see things like Mike Pence. There's a video going around where Mike Pence is like, yeah, the liberals want to take money from the rich and make poor people's lives more comfortable. That kind of thing, right? We're seeing stuff like that, and then from the actual insane, the crazy people, that's just straight up, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're not even trying to hide the racism, the classism, that kind of thing. And I think that ultimately is good for the country because people revolt against that sort of shit, right? And I think overall in this country, we're a lot, there's a general distaste for open displays of racism, open displays of sexism, of that kind of thing, right? It's, and even though it may be acceptable in some areas of the country, like if you live in fucking Arkansas or some shit like that, still, when you say it out loud like that, people can't defend it. People can't bullshit themselves. You have to, that's what it is. It's like you're not giving people the ability to lie to themselves and say, oh, I'm not really racist, I just want small government. Right? That's what it is. And when you take that away, people will turn against it because they don't want to be ostracized from their friends and their family. And, they may even think to themselves, that's the thing, they may even think to themselves, well, I'm not racist. This is a racist policy, This is cutting money for black people in schools or whatever. Hang on a second, folks. I gotta close the window here. Shit. I got sunlight leaking in, and it's messing up my camera. They might turn around and be like, okay, well, that's too much, I'm in favor of small government, but X, Y, Z, right? So I think that ultimately is a good thing for the country. It's a good thing because it forces people to confront, confront and justify their support for policies and politicians, and that's kind of what you want. You want people to actually lay their shit out on the table, right? And that's one of the ways that you deprogram people. There's been a lot of talk in leftist, not even just leftist, but just, democratic, small d, liberal circles about how do we deprogram the Trump cultists, right? The 74 million people who voted for Donald Trump. How do we bring these people down to a soft landing after he leaves office so that they don't go crazy and start burning shit down or go on mass shootings or something, right? And this is one of the ways. One of the ways you do it is by, forcing them to, confront what the shit they support really means. Right? So, anyway, kind of went off on a tangent there. We were talking about Black Lives Matter as, the big stories of the year. I think getting back to what happened in 2020, the other major super gigantic story, of course, was the 2020 election, which was just a roller coaster going up and down, up and down. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. You would think that shit would be over with by now, because it's now, as of today, December 27th. So we've only got, 4 days left until the new year. I think it's next Friday is New Year's Day, right? The election has been over for a month. The Electoral College has voted. All the states have certified. They're about to certify the election on, certify it in Congress on the 6th. It's over, it's done. And yet, our president has still not conceded. And there's a very large portion of his followers, of his supporters, who have just bitten, have just fucking bitten the dog shit turd, I guess, drink the Kool-Aid, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and not only have our support, not only like hoping that he doesn't concede, but are actually calling for him to use the military to invalidate the election and basically take over. Like, this is, a significantly large portion of them, millions of people we're talking about here. Okay. Let's say, because, remember, say what, he got 74 million votes, right? Let's say even a tenth of those people support that. All right, let's say like a tenth of the people who voted for Donald Trump support him using the military to fucking basically steal the election, do a military coup, steal the election, right? That's 7 million people, right? That's a lot of people. 7 million people is a lot of people. That's more than enough. That's like an army right there. If 7 million people showed up marching in the streets with fucking AR-15s, right? It's like a popular revolt. And yeah, it would get crushed, don't get me wrong. They'd get destroyed and they wouldn't stand a fucking chance. But that's not a number to be laughed at. You could laugh at it if it was 7,000 people. Okay. Then you'd just be like, yeah, okay, whatever, get the fuck out of here. Right. 7 billion people is like a significant number of people, right? And they're still calling for this shit, even after all of the fucking, ridiculous shenanigans in the court cases. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, because one of the comments I want to talk to is somebody trying to convince me that Donald Trump won the election and it was stolen from him. And so we'll talk about this a little later. I don't want to get into it too much, but I do want to say this. It's like, even after everything that's happened over the last month, all of the, something like more than 60 court cases that they lost, and Rudy Giuliani's face melting off, and then fucking, all of the fake lawyers with phony evidence and all of that shit, and Donald Trump like fucking trying to get like having meetings about performing military coups and calling up the people in the Republican legislators in various states to try to get them to fucking overturn it for him, shit like that. Try to get them to like send their own voters in the electoral college. What do you call them? Electors. Send their own electors, that kind of thing, right? Basically trying to fucking steal it. Even though all of these like events happened and they all failed, right? And all of his court cases got thrown out, and all of the Republican legislators told him to go fucking piss up a rope. All of this shit. There's still people that want him, that still support him, and still want him to do this. Even though he's doing shit like, golfing while like everybody's fucking like, unemployment is running out and stuff. I want to talk about that too. It's unbelievable. It's kind of unbelievable. It's like, we really need to do something about these people. I think we need an organized kind of deprogramming effort, and it can't be something from the government, obviously, because people aren't going to go for that. I think it needs to come from people like me, well, not me exactly, because I'm kind of nobody. I have a little tiny ass channel with like less than 400 subs, or less than 1,000 subs. I think I have like 758 subs or something, I think it needs to come from a grassroots kind of organization, people like me, people like the Young Turks, people like Vosh. A lot of people hate Vosh, but the guy can make a fucking argument. Right? Seriously, people like him, people like fucking Hannah and Jake. You ever watch Hannah and Jake? They're a really cool channel too. It's got to come from us. We're the ones that have to make the arguments. The people that in the alternative media, right? And even some of the mainstream media too, like celebrities and shit. Yeah, please. Mark Ruffalo or some shit. If you're like a celebrity, go on your Instagram channel or whatever and put up content to fucking deprogram people, to get them to face the truth and the facts about what's really out there and all this other crap. That's fine, you know, but it has to be, you know, it has to be something organic, and it has to be something genuine, right? If they see like some fucking, you know, bullshit super PAC or some shit, right, putting out this stuff, they're just gonna ignore it. It's got to come. There has to be a little bit of. See, here's the thing, right? People don't listen to you if they don't respect you. All right. If you don't respect somebody, you know, like Charlie Kirk. I have zero respect for Charlie Kirk, right? Anything that guy says, I'm going to take with a grain of salt. I'm not going to believe it, you know? And I really kind of turn it off. Like, I don't watch Charlie Kirk because I don't give a fuck about what he says, because as far as I'm concerned, the guy's a fucking grifter, right? You know? So I don't have respect for him. So he could come out tomorrow with the secret of life, and he could be 100% correct, and I wouldn't listen to it. And this is, I understand this. This is bias on my part. I have a bias against, you know, right-wing grifters who I perceive as liars, right? Well, the mainstream media, you know, these people, the Trump supporters, they think the mainstream media is that same kind of thing. They think they're all liars. They think they're all controlled by, like, you know, reptilian super Jews or some shit from another dimension, or whatever the fuck it is, right? They think it's all rigged. You know, they don't believe the media. They don't even believe their own media anymore. They turn against Fox News, whatever the fuck, right? So they're not going to listen to that shit, right? Who are they going to listen to? They're only listening to people on the internet. You know, whether that person right now, those people are guys like Charlie Kirk. You know, guys like Andy No, like fucking Sargon of Akkad and shit. You know what I mean? This is who they're. These are the people that are, you know, fucking radicalizing all these guys. These, and then also, like, you know, sort of conservative talking head types like Rush Limbaugh and Laura Ingraham and you know, Sean Hannity and stuff, right? So it has to come, you know, if there's going to be a counter deprogramming narrative, it has to come from, you know, a sort of a genuine grassroots sort of place, you know, space, I guess. I hate using that word space. I think people misuse the word space all the time, but I think it counts in this instance, right? It has to come from normal people, you know. They're not going to believe some fucking celebrity. You know, if Brie Larson got up there and started talking about how, like, they're all brainwashed, they're going to laugh their asses off at her and they're going to turn her off. You know, it's got to come from somebody that they identify with, somebody they respect, right? Somebody who can actually make an argument and, you know, and address, you know, them as individuals, and somebody who doesn't just, like, you know, call them names, right? And that's the thing. So I think it has to be us, you know. I'm not using myself as an example, but, you know, this is what I'm trying to do. And I hope other people out there try to do the same thing. You know, there's leftist YouTube channels, people like ContraPoints. You ever watch ContraPoints? ContraPoints is fantastic. And if you haven't seen her, please look up ContraPoints. ContraPoints is, you know, exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. Clear, concise, backs up the facts. And that's not, see, the thing is, though, it's not enough to just have facts. All right, because if that was the truth, if all it took was just, like, seeing what the actual truth was through facts or whatever, then we wouldn't have this problem now. Like, facts don't convince people. You know, you have to make a compelling argument. You have to, like, hit them in the feels. And I know this is sort of like, you know, this is a meme at this point. You know, facts don't care about your feelings or whatever, right? But that's kind of true. You know, that's kind of what it really is. You don't change your mind because you just read something in a book and it's like, oh, this is what, you know, scientists say. No, you don't change your mind over shit like that. You change your mind, like, you know, when you realize this is the truth and there's an actual resonant emotional meaning for it. You know, I can prove it. I can prove it. You know why? Because here's an example. For 50 years, we've known smoking will kill you. All right. That is kind of undeniable scientific fact at this point, right? You know, even the tobacco companies admit, okay, smoking will fucking kill you. Yet people still smoke, right? People still use tobacco, people vape, all this other shit, you know, right? They use fucking like, you know, snuff and all this other disgusting crap. Well, why do they fucking do it? You know, when you know that the fact is it will fucking cause cancer and it will kill you, you know, right? You know, and then it's because people, you know, their emotions are tied into, and I can say this because I have experience in this because I used to smoke, right? I smoked for, you know, when I was a teenager all the way up until I was almost 30, and then I quit, you know, and it wasn't any kind of like scientific paper, you know, that got me to quit. You know, even though I knew in the back of my head, this is bad for me, it's going to kill me, I got to stop one of these days. I kept smoking, and I kept smoking, you know. And I quit when I turned 30, you know, because it was like, I finally, you know, I understood, it's like, okay, this is it. You know, I felt like shit, and I was afraid that maybe it might be too late. So I better fucking quit before I get cancer and die. And that's what it was, you know. You know, getting older made me quit smoking, right? It had nothing to do with the facts. It was an emotional response. Well, that's how it is with pretty much everything, because that's how people think, you know. There's really nobody out there that judges things, you know, purely on the basis of just what's objectionable, absolute truth and reality. Like, not barely anybody, you know, doesn't. I don't want to say nobody, because obviously there's no way I can know that, but, you know, most people don't, you know. Most people believe things because it feels good to them for it to believe in it, you know, whether it's your religion, you know. In fact, that's probably the only reason why people believe in their religions, because it feels good for them, right? Whether it's, you know, the politics, the things you vote for, whether it's like if you like a particular TV show or not, you know, everything, the way you dress, the food you fucking eat, you know, why do people eat cookies and candy and, you know, Hostess fucking, like, you know, Hostess fucking cupcakes and shit when they know that shit's bad for you? Because it feels good. That's why, all right? It's got nothing to do with it has nothing to do with the facts. Nothing, you know, the fact is you eat this shit, you're going to get fat. You're going to get fat, you're going to get diabetes, you're going to get fucked up. You know, your jeans aren't going to fit anymore, women aren't going to want to fuck you. Right? That's what happens when you eat junk food, but you eat it anyway because it feels good, because you like it, because there's an emotional response. You know, that's the reason why chocolate outsells caramel every year. You know, right? Why do people love chocolate so much? Because there's an emotional response when you eat chocolate. You know, you get those endorphins going, right? You don't have that same fucking emotional response when you eat caramel or when you eat gummy bears. I mean, I don't know, some people maybe, right? But the majority of people, no, they don't, you know. And it's like, well, why the fuck do people like chocolate so much? You know, because it's like, you know, it's tied to like memories and shit. You know, they get chocolate on Christmas, they get chocolate on fucking, you know, Valentine's Day, crap like that, right? You know, they get chocolate when they're little kids and they remember, oh, I really love this like chocolate cereal I used to get every year. And then every year, every time they go to Starbucks and they get a fucking grande mocha, they get that same endorphin rush. That's what it is. This is not, you know, this is, you know, and it sounds like bullshit, doesn't it? But no, it's not. It's not bullshit. That's the reason why you like stuff, you know, out there. And it's everything that you like. Everything that you buy, everything you believe in, right? Everything that you, you know, pretty much everything that you do comes down to an emotional response like that in one way or another. You know, whether you play video games, or the way you fucking dress, you know, the way you talk, right? The particular brand of soda you drink, you know. Seriously. So, whether you smoke cigarettes and put a very dangerous chemical into your body which will kill you one day, all comes down to your emotional, you know, the way your emotions are tied to it. And getting back to the subject, this is how we need to approach it. This is how you need to approach it if we want to deprogram these people. And, it won't help everybody. There's always going to be that small, hardcore group of people, right? Can you guys even see what I'm drawing? Sorry, you know what? I need to just move this down this way a little. There. All right, now you can see it. Mostly. All right. It's not gonna affect everybody, obviously. There's always gonna be people who, will not go for this. Whether they were just, God damn it, now it's in my way. All right, how about that? All right, that's better. There's always gonna be people who are just like fucking, too invested in this shit, right? But it will, most people, it will help them, right? Most people are not raised by, like, who are involved in racist sort of organizations like the KKK or, like, anything like that. Most of those people weren't born into it. Most of them came to it, they were recruited in some way, and, and why? How did they get recruited? Well, it's just like any other group that recruits you. They found friends there, right? And this is, kind of how people join cults. Excuse me. Right. This is how people join cults, but this is how they, like, how they get converted to new religions, stuff like that. And it usually happens when you're young, right? You'll be of college age, somewhere around then. And most of the time, it'll happen around that age. Because at around that age, you're very young, you don't know anything, right? And you're looking for answers. So it's seriously something like 90% of all religious conversions occur in your early 20s, right? And it's because you're kind of like out on your own, you're looking for answers, you're trying to do something to differentiate yourself from your parents. That's another thing. So it's like, oh, wow, my parents were hardcore Christians. Maybe I'll join this, like, Islamic church, right? And it's because you want to do it, because you're doing something to kind of, like, break away from them, right? For example, right? And it's the, joining a racist sort of organization is the same kind of thing. Here's some friends that I met. Oh, and then this guy seems to have answers to questions that I have. And, I respect these people, and I'm going to listen to what they have to say. And then before you know it, you're fucking wearing a Proud Boys shirt, going to, like, a protest to go beat up, like, fucking old ladies or something, right? And you sit back and you go, how the fuck did I get here? And just like anything else, people integrate this shit into their identity, That's the other question. It's like, well, why are all these, like, maniac Trump supporters still, like, fucking, refusing to basically admit defeat and like saying that they want him to, like, fucking, engage in a military coup and shit? Why are these people still, like, in denial of reality? It's because they've integrated it into their identity the same way people do with religions, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm a Trump supporting Christian, right? That's, it's integrated into their fucking identity. And it's like, if they admit that they were wrong, then that means they have to change their identity. If they admit that he lost, then that means that somehow they were wrong. And they don't want to admit that they were wrong. They don't want to admit that all of this shit that they, like, invested all this money and time in over the last year, right? This person they put all their hope in and all that is a fucking loser, And it's also because, Republicans respect strength. That's another thing too, right? Or at least the appearance of strength. And if he lost an election, that must mean there's something wrong with him, right? And if there's something wrong with him, that means there's something wrong with them too. That means there's something, like they're that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid, oh, I've been backing the wrong horse. I'm a fool, Democrats and liberals and progressives don't really have that problem. Bernie Sanders loses the fucking nomination or whatever. It's not like all the people that supported Bernie Sanders suddenly jump ship and don't support him anymore. It's like, no, they continue to. They understand the struggle. They understand that you don't win them all. And maybe next time he'll fucking win. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, Republicans and Trump supporters don't understand that. They don't get that, to them, losing means the guy's a fucking loser, And I'm not really sure why. I think that has also a lot to do with, it has to do with like perceived notions of strength, I think it's kind of related to the predilection for conservatives to perceive people with disabilities as weak also. This is definitely something that Donald Trump takes advantage of, when he like makes fun of disabled journalists and things like that. Basically, if you're not big and strong and a winner all the time in 100% of everything you do, then you're a loser. And if you're a loser, then people should have nothing to do with you. This is why Donald Trump wears lifts in his shoes. You ever see the way Donald Trump stands? The way he stands is like, he looks like a fucking penguin. Hang on a second. So let me just look this up. Trump stands funny. All right. So let's go to Google Images and let's take a look at the way Donald Trump stands. Let's see. Here we go. See this this image here? Well, you can't really see it there. Let me try to find one where it's. Here we go. All right, I can show this. There's no nudity in this this Google image search. So let's turn this on here, right monitor. See the way Donald Trump is fucking cars. See the way Donald Trump is standing right here. See that? See how he just sort of goes merp, merp, like he's he looks like he's a centaur. There you go. Right? Holy shit, that's funny. God, I should save that. But anyway, getting back to that image, see how he just sort of like, why he's like leaning forward with his big old belly hanging out and his butt in the air with like legs completely like he has a massive broom handle just kind of shoved right up his ass. Like that's how he stands. It's because he has lifts in his shoes here and he's balancing. That's why, because he's short. There's a picture of Trump standing next to Obama, right? Which is there's a picture of Trump standing next to Obama, right? Hang on a second. Trump. Let's look up Trump height, because then you could see it. Right. Here we go. See this? And if you look, he's slightly shorter than Barack Obama is, right? So Barack Obama is 6'1", and Donald Trump's official height is 6'3", but he's not 6'3". He's shorter than Barack Obama, so that means he's not, what is he, 5'11", 5'12", possibly 6 feet tall. So he's wearing lifts in his shoes, right? Let me turn that off. That's why he stands like a fucking, penguin with a fucking stick up his butt. Onward to dystopia. Trump isn't the penguin. That's Rudy. Yeah, huh? I don't know. I don't think Donald Trump is cool enough to be the Joker. If Rudy's the penguin, then that means that Trump, somebody else has to be the Joker. I think, Trump is definitely not cool enough to be the Joker. He's maybe Clayface at most. Holy shit. Anyway, I think Pence would be Two-Face. That'd be funny. I think, maybe we should draw that. Maybe we should draw Donald Trump and all the people as different Batman villains. That'd be a good one. We could have Melania as fucking Harley Quinn. I don't know. See, Harley Quinn is too cool to be fucking Melania. Maybe Ivanka could be Harley Quinn. And Jared Kushner could be Two-Face. Yeah, that would fit. Holy crap. Anyway, getting back to what we were talking about. Sorry, guys, kind of got off on a tangent there. What were we fucking talking about? Donald Trump being short? Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, that's why he stands so funny, because he has lifts in his shoes. Because he doesn't want to look short, because he has this bullshit notion in his head that tall people are better. Because if you're tall, you're more imposing, and then people will respect you more. Right? And that's ridiculous horseshit that kind of comes from the conservative mindset. There's this conservative mindset that, bases strength on outward appearance. If you look at somebody like Bernie Sanders, for example, Bernie Sanders is not a strong-looking individual, right? I mean, I don't know how tall he is. He's not the tallest guy in the world. He's not like, super in shape. I mean, of course he's like fucking like, old now, right? But even like video, if you look at pictures of Bernie from like back in the 80s and the 70s and shit, the guy was never fucking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, all right? A little tiny Jewish man or whatever, right? I don't think he's Jewish, but, I don't know. Actually, I think he is Jewish, but I think he's like, agnostic or something. But anyway, let's just say not the most imposing physical specimen. But the thing about Bernie Sanders is that guy sticks to his guns. He comes back and he loses constantly. He's constantly not, getting his like bills don't get passed, right? His shit gets knocked down in the Senate, constantly, right? He's running for president like every fucking time. He never gets it, and he comes back every single fucking time. He never quits. The guy's tenacious, right? That's what strength really is. That's what it really is. When it comes to being a politician, right? It's not about how big you are. It's not about how physically imposing you are. Fars, I'm gonna ban you. You are banned. Get the fuck out of here. Remove. I don't give a fuck who you are. Hide user on this channel. Fuck you, Fars. Anyway, right. It's not about how you look. It's not about how physically imposing you are, right? It's about coming back over and over and over, right? And sticking to your guns and doing what you believe is right for your people. And people respond to that. And that's why Bernie Sanders keeps getting reelected over and over and over. Even though the guy, admittedly has a pretty horrible track record as far as success comes, right? But, that's the thing. People respect him. People respect him because that's what actual real strength looks like. You don't give up. You never give up. And, Bernie Sanders loses. He's lost, how many times has that guy run for president? Like 5 times, right? He's never got the nomination, right? 2016 was the closest he's ever came. It was that close. He almost got it. What does he do when he loses, right? He turns around, he endorses the winner, right? Okay. What did Donald Trump do when he lost the election, right? Whined and cried like a little fucking baby, for a month straight, right? Delving into any kind of ridiculous horseshit conspiracy theory that he possibly can, repeatedly rage tweeting untrue bullshit, right? And trying to, calling up the fucking legislatures in different states, trying to get them to steal the election for him, shit like that. He's basically throwing a fucking tantrum. Has Bernie Sanders ever thrown a tantrum? Right? Bernie had to have penis reduction surgery. It's a very serious issue. Don't laugh. Sorry. Did he really? Nah. I don't know. I think maybe he might have had to have, ball reduction surgery because his nuts are huge. His balls are gigantic. But, anyway. Yeah, and that's, so that's what it really fucking means to, like, that's what being strong when you're a politician. That's what it really means. Tenacity. Tenacity and not crying like a little fucking child, when people don't like you, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know, man. I can't see how anybody can look at Donald Trump and think the guy is, like, strong. You ever see how Ben Garrison draws Donald Trump? This is some funny shit. All right, let me just look up Ben Garrison cartoon, right? So for those of you guys who don't know who Ben Garrison is, he's this right-wing, insane cartoonist, political cartoonist who has basically zero grasp in fucking reality. This is, and I want to show you, this is what Ben Garrison, this is how he draws Donald Trump. All right, so let's just take a look at this. See this guy right here? Donald Trump, he draws Donald Trump all huge, big muscles, right? Here's another one. Huge, kind of big muscles, very trim waist. He's like, he's like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? That's how he draws fucking Donald Trump, right? Basically it's He-Man. That's what we've got here. This is what Ben Garrison is drawing Trump as, the God Emperor or whatever, slaying the dragon of political correctness, right? And it's, here he is as a superhero, bullets and shit bouncing off of him, Here he is as a basketball fucking slam dunker guy with this immaculate, weird fucking mane of hair coming off of him. And then in real life you see Donald Trump and he's standing like a fucking penguin, right? That's how, this is how they see this fucking guy. And it couldn't be more detached from reality if you made it that way. Like, if I was making a movie about how, about some insane, like, ridiculous fucking political cult leader, I couldn't make it, I couldn't, like, write it to be more insane than this. Like, I don't know. I don't understand people. It's like, because in real life, he's like a sniveling, crying little fucking baby, There's reports now that, like, apparently Trump is, like, sort of in this, like, loop where all he talks about is the fucking election. Every time somebody goes in there to try to talk to him, because remember, he's still the president, right, for another, 26 days or something like that, right? Still the president. So he has to get things like military briefings, right? Because he's the president, because he still might have to make decisions, right? So, what were to happen if there was a major crisis tomorrow, terrorist attack, right? Fucking Iran. What were to happen if Iran went to go and, like, mine the Persian Gulf tomorrow? Just for example, I don't know. I mean, that would never fucking happen, but I'm just saying, right? Or some other thing like that, or fucking ISIS did a terrorist attack in New York or something. This is all shit that could happen. We would need to have a president there in order to make decisions. Mr. President, what do we do? Mr. President, do we deploy? Mr. President, do we this, do we that? And apparently, he isn't getting his, like, he's not getting these fucking, he's not getting his military briefings that he should be getting, right? Not that he was, like, taking those seriously to begin with. I mean, I'm sure you all remember the reports that, like, he cut those down to, like, one-page bullet points with lots of pictures and graphs and things because the motherfucker doesn't read, right? Remember, I mean, even George W. Bush read those things, right? Barack Obama apparently would read, like, fucking 20 pages a day, when it came to these military briefings, right? Apparently he read all of them every day, spent like 3 hours a day reading these fucking things, right? Even George W. Bush, like, apparently asked them to sum it up for him in, like, a 10-page fucking summary. But he read that every day, even, like, the worst president of all time before our current president was doing a better job than this motherfucker. This guy's not reading shit. Do you really think Donald Trump is sitting there reading military briefings? It's like, no, man. He went fucking golfing, this past weekend, right? And all right, this is actually a nice segue because I wanted to talk about the stimulus package, right? So, if you have been keeping track of this story, there was this stimulus package that was supposed to get passed, right? Which didn't happen. Here's the story, okay? The HEROES Act is what they call this, has been sitting on McConnell's desk since May. Okay, that had lots of things in it. It had $1,200 checks for people. It had money for the states. Right, because we're facing a lot of different, crises when it comes to these things, right? The states are running out of money, because people aren't spending as much, so they're not getting as much in taxes, and there's way more people on unemployment, so the states aren't able to supply that anymore. They need some federal bailout money, right? Um, the extra $600 that people were getting in an unemployment that expired yesterday, right? The day after Christmas. So Merry fucking Christmas to everybody out there. Uncle Sam doesn't give a shit about you. Just remember that. And there's lots and lots of other things, right? So for months, this bill to provide for the heroes, was on Mitch McConnell's desk, and he didn't do shit to actually pass that. He wasn't going to do anything about it at all, right? And it was only this coming runoff election in Georgia that actually got his fucking turtle-looking ass, motivated to do something about it, because the two Republican senators that are running in that election told him, I need this to pass so that I can run on it. So that, because the people in Georgia are the Republicans in Georgia are coming to them and saying, hey, where the fuck is the stimulus? I need money. I'm in trouble. Right? So that got Mitch McConnell. The prospect of Mitch McConnell losing his position as Speaker of, Senate Majority Leader. Sorry, not Speaker of the House. Senate Majority Leader. That motivated him. Right? So that kind of shows you what Mitch McConnell actually cares about. He doesn't give a fuck about you. Okay? He doesn't care about you or whoever you are, whatever. Mitch McConnell doesn't give a fuck about anybody at all except himself. And so when he personally, his position of power is personally threatened, suddenly his ass moves and he gets shit done. Thanks a lot, McConnell, you fucking piece of shit. So anyway, so he finally goes back to the drawing board, and there was a long, drawn-out negotiation. McConnell's thing, I talked about this in the last live stream, so in more detail if you want to, check that out. But McConnell's thing was all about getting, a liability shield for corporations and such to, so that you couldn't sue them if you got coronavirus if they were not following the federal guidelines. Once again, kind of showing what McConnell really cares about. Money and power. Doesn't give a fuck about people. Right? He cares about, and why did he get that? Because that's what Republican donors want. The donors want to send people back to work, and they don't want to have to pay for any additional protections. That's what it is. People like Amazon and shit, various other companies that are donating to the Republican Party are basically telling them, hey, I don't want to have to pay in order to have people socially distance, or to get provide masks for people, or update my ventilation systems in my buildings. I don't want to have to pay for that shit. So, but if I don't do it, people are going to get this disease and they're going to die, and I'm going to end up getting sued. So please make it so they can't sue me. Right? And this is, here's some money, pass a law saying they can't sue me. And that's what Mitch McConnell's been doing, right? Because he's a fucking sellout piece of shit that doesn't care about normal, ordinary people. And for fuck's sake, let's please unelect his ass, right? But anyway, that's a subject for a different video. So that's what he's been holding out for. That's why this never passed, because that wasn't in the House bill. And Nancy Pelosi, for her part, has told Mitch McConnell to go piss up a rope, because that's ridiculous horseshit. And even, Nancy Pelosi is not a progressive at all in the slightest, right? I mean, you would even say she's corporatist is what she is. Okay, so, but even that was a bridge too far for Nancy Pelosi. And she realized, if I allow that thing to fucking pass, Democrats are going to get murdered, in the election. So fuck that shit. We're not passing that. Right? And this was the big fight over this stimulus bill for the last, 7 months or whatever, right? This is the reason why this has been held up. And for all this time, we got one measly check for $1,200 and no additional stimulus, no nothing. right? Over, Mitch McConnell's hard on for fucking corporate liability, right? Finally, he gets motivated because he's going to lose his position, so he relents on that. But the trade-off for that was that they lowered, the amount of money that you would get from $1,200 to $600, right? But they made it so that it's $600 per person. So it really wasn't that bad if you look at it. And I'll tell you why. Because stimulus there, this was supposed to help the poorest people, right? So if you were to take, like, say, a family of four, right? And if it's $600 per person, then that means they get $2,400, right? That's not so bad, right? Maybe it would suck for people like me, but still, me and my wife, we would get $1,200, right? But if you're just a single person by yourself and shit, and you only get $600, that doesn't really help you very much. But it was designed to help, and it was also, prorated. So if you made over a certain amount of money, you wouldn't get anything at all, right? Well, that's kind of, if you think about it, that's kind of how it should be. If you're making over a certain amount of money, you don't really need stimulus, do you? Right? And the cutoff they used was $70,000. And while I understand a lot of people who make that much money still probably don't, because that's about what I make. Right. Well, my current job, I had to take a significant pay cut at my current job, but it was 100% worth it because I love my current job. It's awesome. And I hope I work there for another, 5 years or 10 years even. But, I can understand, like, if you're supporting a family on 70 grand, that could be, a problem. Right. But, if it's just you by yourself and shit, $70,000 is more than enough. You should be able to handle it, unless you're living in a really, really high, high expense state, like New York City or some shit. If you're living in New York City, or if you're living in fucking San Francisco, like a high expense area like that, then yeah, maybe that wouldn't be enough. But for most people, you should be able to get by on 70 grand a year. Right? So I can understand that. So it really wasn't that bad of a deal, that's it really wasn't that bad of a deal, right? I mean, it wasn't the best, and obviously, more money is better, right? I mean, that's obviously true, and it really wasn't like the ultimate like solution to everybody's problems. It was more of a band-aid because, even that much money wasn't going to like help people too much. It might help them immediately, but in another month or another 2 months, it would have, we'd be right back in the same problem. But, I think we can all agree that something is better than nothing. And there's some people that need money right now. There's people right now who are like, barely making enough to squeeze by, and they're in danger of getting evicted and shit like that. And an extra $600 might actually allow them to like, make their rent this month, or make their fucking heating bill so that they don't freeze to death and shit. Somebody in Maine or whatever, up there in the fucking snowy north, right? Where like your heating bill comes to like $500 a month or some shit. Like, there are people right now who need the $600. So is what I'm saying. Right? So they finally hash all that shit out, and it's going to get passed. And they send it to Donald Trump's desk, and Donald Trump turns around and does a soft veto on it, which is where he doesn't veto it, but he just kind of doesn't sign it, and he doesn't veto it. It just sits on his desk, right? And the thing is the shitty thing about that means they can't do anything, right? Because if he would just veto it, they could override the veto, and it would get passed, right? Which is what he did to the NDA this year. He actually vetoed the NDA, so they can override that and pass it, right? This one, they can't do shit until he decides to do one of those two things, so it's just going to sit there and linger, and now they're basically fucked, right? And why would he do this? And Donald Trump comes out on the news and on Twitter and shit, right? Says a bunch of shit about all this stuff that's not in the bill, right? Like he talks about, this has, $5 million for Bengal, and it has $6 million for Iran, and all this other crap, right? I don't know if you saw that speech. All that shit's not in this bill. all that stuff is in the ominous spending bill, right? So that really has nothing to do with, the stimulus package, right? So Donald Trump doesn't even know what the fuck he's talking about, right? That was a joke. But anyway, he comes out and he says people need $2,000 a month. It's like, okay, that's great. Yeah, people want more money. Why didn't you fucking say that shit a month ago? Why didn't you, because basically they've been negotiating, and apparently the things that are in this bill are things that the White House agreed to, right? So how come you didn't say at the beginning, give people $2,000, right? Why the fuck did he do it? And okay, so I see Dynacat. How you doing, Dynacat? Why did he do it? To stay relevant and keep making the headlines? Yeah, maybe that's one reason. I think there is something to that, because Joe Biden is taking all of the headlines recently with his cabinet picks and stuff like that. Yeah, that's one reason, right? But I really think another reason for that, another reason why he did this, is revenge specifically against Mitch McConnell, right? And here's why. Okay, so if you think Mitch McConnell congratulated Joe Biden on his electoral college wins, like basically once the electoral college voted, it was over. Mitch McConnell went up in front of the Senate and gave sort of a congratulatory thing to Joe Biden, acknowledging that he was the president-elect and he will be president. That's one thing. Apparently, that really pissed Donald Trump off, and Donald Trump thinks Mitch McConnell is like a traitor, right? He thinks McConnell is throwing him under the bus, right? So that's something we got to remember. Trump has the mentality of a small child. It's like he's like a 10-year-old kid who got his toys taken away and now is throwing a fucking fit, saying, give me my He-Man toy. And then his mom is going, no, you've had too much He-Man now. You have to do your homework. No, I want my He-Man now. And he's on his ground, banging his fists and shit on the ground, kicking his feet because he wants to play with He-Man and Skeletor and not do his math homework. That's what's going on right now, right? He's throwing a fit like a child, and he thinks McConnell is taking his fucking toys away. So that's the first thing. He thinks he's a traitor. He thinks he's throwing him under the bus because he's not, because he's not directing the, because he's acknowledging Biden. The other thing is that McConnell apparently told all of the Republicans in the Senate not to monkey around with the vote that's happening on January 6th, where they basically, make it official, right? Where the Senate has to, the House and the Senate have to, vote and recertify the electoral college vote. So it's like the electors go to the electoral college and then they vote, and then that goes to the House and the Senate. I think just the House even. And the House has to, vote on that to certify that. And it's I don't know why there's so many different fucking levels of certification or whatever, right? So apparently McConnell told all of the Republicans, don't fuck with that. Okay. He won. Biden won. Give it up. Do not mess with that vote. And he's right. You know why? Because it'll backfire. Because they don't have the ability, the Congress, I think it is in the House, they don't have the ability to do anything that would, result in a Trump, the Trump basically stealing it in the House, right? Because there's not enough of them. Okay. And that would look bad in the country. What if they actually did that? What if they actually, managed to overturn it through some legislative fucking trickery? What do you think would happen? People would go crazy, and it wouldn't just be Democrats, however many, 87 million Democrats that voted for Joe Biden, right? It wouldn't even be them. It would be, the majority of the Republicans who voted too would call this bullshit, they'd call shenanigans on that, right? Because fucking Trump got Trump lost. He got the less number of votes. He got the fucking, he lost the electoral college. You know, everything's been legit. All of the court cases, he lost all of those things. They're all bullshit. All the, you know, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about that in a little while. Right. And it would just, it's kind of a no-win situation for him. So he's basically telling him, don't fuck with that vote. Just give it up. Biden won. And Trump can't handle that shit. So Trump does this thing. He fucks up this vote, the stimulus package vote, to get back at McConnell. Right. Because this is what it does. Right. By Donald Trump, like, you know, not vetoing this vote, this stimulus package, and not signing it, by allowing it to just die like this until he's saying he wants $2,000, right? This is what happens. He knows that the Republicans don't want to give us $2,000 a person, right? Because the Republicans don't give a shit about people. He understands this, right? They don't actually care about us. They don't actually care about what the people need or what will help people. They don't give a fuck about any of that shit. And the only reason at all we're even, like, you know, considering getting this thing passed is because of the election in Georgia, right? So he knows that McConnell doesn't want that. He knows the Republicans don't want that, right? And they're going to have to do two things. They're either going to have to vote on it and vote against it, right? Which will basically, like, murder them when it comes to Trump's base, because Trump's base wants whatever Trump's want. So now Trump's base is saying give everybody $2,000. It's insane. It's funny how all of a sudden Trump got progressive in his last fucking 26 days of office, right? Right. So they know that if it comes to a vote and they don't do it, then Trump's base is going to turn on them like a bunch of piranha and tear them apart, you know, like they're hyenas and shit. So they're scared to death of that. And they know that if they do vote for it, you know, if it does come up and they vote for it, then fucking all of the Republican donors are going to turn on them and they're going to stop losing money, right? Because the Republican donors don't want to give people stimulus checks because they don't give a shit about people. They want, you know, they want corporate liability. That's all they care about. So basically it puts McConnell in a no-win situation, right? And, you know, if they don't do it, then that might end up in, you know, also with the side benefit of the two Republican senators losing in Georgia and, you know, McConnell losing his position as, you know, Senate Majority Leader, right? So that's basically it. So Donald Trump is kind of doing this, you know, at least I think this theory holds a lot to it. I think there's a possibility that there's a lot to this theory. That he's doing it basically to fucking get revenge on McConnell for, you know, not being like his bitch anymore. Right? So, I don't know. And, you know, ultimately it's like, you know, do I have a problem with this? No. I mean, I would like there to be a stimulus package because people need it. And I think it's bullshit that, you know, the well-being of the country is like being fucking held hostage by these two old men and their fucking personal, you know, fight against each other. It's sort of like, you ever see that movie Grumpy Old Men, you know, with fucking Walter Matthau and, you know, Jack Lemmon, and they're like these two old guys that like fucking hate each other. Right? These two old guys that hate each other and like neighbors that fucking fight all the time. It's like that. It's like if we had two grumpy old men who had a neighbor feud over, like, you know, my lawn is like, you quit fucking letting your dog shit on my lawn or something. And instead of something like dumb like that, like the fate of the entire country was tied to it. That's kind of what's going on here. And it's funny and sad and ridiculous and horrifying all at the same time. And I think that more than anything sums up the year 2020. Funny and sad, ridiculous and horrifying. You know, those are the four adjectives, I guess. You know, not adverbs, adjectives that describe 2020 the best to me. You know, so yeah, that's some freaky shit there. I don't understand it, man. I think that's just a great way to end the year. You know, a great way to end the year is is a final middle finger from the worst president of all time as hundreds of thousands of people die, millions of people are out of work, right? And, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people about to get evicted, about to lose their homes, people going hungry, food lines in fucking Texas. There's a pretty famous picture out there floating around about there right now about food lines in Texas where people are waiting in their cars for like 5 miles so that they can go to this food bank and like actually get food and not starve to death. 20 million people out of fucking work, 12 million people on unemployment, which is about to fucking expire. That's just the perfect ending to the Trump presidency. Not only are people actually, is the economy shit and nothing got done for 4 years, but now people are actually fucking dying. And it's like, how did you get, anybody out there, because I know we do occasionally get conservatives and some Trump people that watch my streams, right? What did you think, how did you think it was going to end? Seriously, how did you think, you saw who this guy was when he was elected, Donald Trump, right? We saw what he was all about. We had shit even back then that showed us his character. Trump University, for example. The guy rips people off for a living. That was his job, right? Trump, we had lots of reports about how he just wouldn't pay people. People would fucking work for him, and then he would just like not pay them, and they'd have to sue and all this other crap, and then they would stop suing because it would end up costing them more than like what he owed them. Shit like that. We had reports of like Donald Trump, the grab him by the pussy thing, and he's cheating on his fucking wife with porn stars and all this other crap. So we knew the kind of guy he was. I mean, even down to like his children, the businesses they have, and like fucking, nepotism and all this other crap, and his wife, the woman that he the woman that he shares his bed with obviously doesn't fucking love him. Right? He married her for pussy. She married him for money. It's no secret, and I bet, I think I'm going to actually go to like online because they have like online betting for shit like this. And I'm going to put some money down that Melania divorces Donald Trump within 90 days after the election. I think I'm going to vote for that shit because, I'm going to actually put some cash down on that because I think that's a surefire bet. We see all of these things and it's like we knew who these guys were. We knew who they were, before they got elected. Any idiot who could read a fucking webpage could have figured all of this shit out. What do you think happens when you put people like that in charge of an entire country, right? These are guys that can't even run, this is a guy that tried to sell fucking frozen steaks through the Sharper Image. For crying out loud. He thought that was a good idea. He thought, hey, people will go to the Sharper Image to buy fucking steak. All right. Are you serious? Do you trust? I mean, that's the dumbest. It's ridiculous. That's like one step above, investing in a furry trout farm or a jackalope ranch or some shit like that. You know what I mean? And if somebody came to me with like a business proposal like that, I'd laugh my ass off. It's like, when the fuck does the Sharper Image have a frozen food section? It doesn't make any sense. This is a guy that drove a casino out of business. A fucking casino, for crying out loud. How the fuck does a casino go out of business? It doesn't make, it's the dumbest shit ever. Why did you think this guy was going to be a success? How did you think it was going to end? How did you think his presidency was going to end? How exactly? What? We were going to pull out of the Middle East. We were going to solve the Middle East crisis. Everybody was going to be rich and happy. Taxes were going to be like fucking non-existent, but we wouldn't need them anyway because, everybody would be a millionaire. Some shit like that. I mean, seriously, did you really think that you're going to end this year farting through silk because of Donald Trump? Right? A baby could have told you this is what was going to happen, right? I don't know. I really hope, I don't know, folks, there's a contingent of people on the left, They call them accelerationists, right? And they're people who are leftists who will go out and they'll vote for Republicans. God damn, fucking cars, sorry. They'll vote for Republicans, they'll vote for fascists, things like that, specifically because they believe these people will accelerate the collapse of the current system. And that's why. So there were people who voted for George W. Bush for that reason, because they thought that he would start more wars, right? They thought he would crash the economy harder, that kind of thing. And that brings the whole system closer to collapsing. And then after the system collapses, then we'll have our, Marxist revolution or whatever, blah, 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 right? There's a pretty growing, it's still somewhat mostly, well, actually, it's still very, very fringe at this point, but it's definitely bigger than it was in 2016. It's gotten a little bigger, right? And you know something? They're kind of, in this particular instance, they're kind of right. The accelerationists were correct. Donald Trump has accelerated the collapse of the system. I think they're wrong I think their aims are wrong. I think that, because I don't really see why, if the system were to collapse, that it would be replaced with a fucking, with a socialist one. I think it would be replaced with the exact same kind of system we have now. I mean, if you look at things like what happened in Russia, after the Soviet Union collapsed, right? Things got a lot shittier. In fact, some people would argue that it's way shittier now in Russia than it was under the Soviet system. I mean, I don't know how much of that's true, but they still have a dictator. They're still poor, right? They just have a bunch of oligarchs now who are not officially communist, but are basically still oligarchs. That's basically what's going on in Russia. They still have a dictator. It's just not a communist dictator. It's a fucking hyper-capitalist dictator, right? Borderline fascist dictator. I guess you could call Putin a fascist. He kind of fits all the criteria there. Authoritarian at the very least, right? Hey, Raph, what's going on, man? Thank you for joining. By the way, I want to say hello, give shout-outs to everybody. You guys are cool. Thanks for joining my very last stream of the year. Dynacat and Onward to Dystopia and Inshoma. Thanks, guys. You guys are cool. Anyway, but yeah, getting back to that, like, here's the reason why, like, I don't go for that, accelerationist stuff. It's because I have things to lose. And I touched a little bit about on this last time. It's really easy to want to smash the system when you don't have anything invested in the system, right? So that's why you see a lot of like anarchists and things like that. They tend to be younger. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like what we were talking about earlier today, when people convert religions when they're in their college years, right? Same kind of thing, people were a little bit younger because they don't really have much invested in the system, right? When you're 21, you don't own a house. You don't have children that you're responsible for most of the time. I mean, some people do. But, usually you're not married. Usually you don't have a family. You don't have babies or, toddlers or children that are, et cetera, right? Usually you don't actually have very much in the way of wealth. You don't have a significant amount of savings. You don't have a 401k or, stock portfolio, shit like that. You don't have those things when you're in your college years. Not usually, most of the time. I mean, some people do because they inherit stuff, but right, most people don't, right? Well, by the time you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, right, you do start to acquire these things. You'll buy a house, you'll have a couple of cars, you'll have investments, you'll get married and have a family, shit like that, right? And it's a lot more scary for someone who has all of this and all of these things that you require a system in order to support this stuff, right? There has to be a banking system for you to take out a home loan to buy a house, for example, right? That's just how it is. I mean, unless you're gonna like go trade a house with somebody for fucking like, sharpened rocks and bear skins or some shit. Right. But in the modern world, you go, you buy a house, it's like, unless you just have all the cash on you on hand or whatever, you're gonna have to go get a home loan. And you're gonna have to, there has to be a system, set up to regulate that home loan, right? To facilitate that home loan so that, you know, it's possible to do it, right? If you have investments, right, there has to be a system out there to, facilitate your investments, right? Make sure that the people, like let's say you go with Prudential, what's to keep like, and you take $5,000 and you go buy a bunch of stock with Prudential, right? What's to keep Prudential from just like taking your money and bailing, running away? Fuck you, I got your money. What are you gonna do about it? Like, what's to stop Prudential from doing that? Well, that's what the financial system is there for, regulation, stuff like that. You know what I mean? People, they can't just fucking like rip you off and leave and without any consequences, right? Etc. Right? Well, if you another thing, like if you have kids and they have to go to school, well, there has to be a school system in place. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about institutions and that kind of thing. Well, you're invested in these institutions when you have this stuff. When you get older, when you're older and you have these things, right? When you tend to be older, right? I put it that way because it's not. I'm not going to say that there's nobody who's of college age that doesn't have a family or an investment or a house or whatever. Because there are people out there sometimes, depending on where you live, right? Or who you are or how much money your family has, etc. But most of the time when you're younger, you don't have this stuff and you're not invested in these things, right? And when you get to be my age, you are, right? And it's a lot less, attractive to me to just burn it all down because I have stuff like this to think about. I have ties to these institutions, even in such a small way, even somebody like me, I'm not rich, I'm not a super wealthy person, but just a normal middle class person who has a home loan and and a 401k and a couple of, $1,000 in stocks or whatever. Right. This is stuff, and it's because you don't want to lose what you spent your whole life earning, right? What if the financial system goes belly up tomorrow? There goes all my money. Well, what if my bank shuts down tomorrow, right? And I've got, all my savings in there just gone, disappears. Well, that's the kind of shit that happens when the system collapses, right? That's what we saw in 2008, for example, when the financial system collapsed and thousands of people lost their fucking investments, gone. They lost their retirement plans, for example, in 2008, gone. Because they're stuff like that. I'm sure you remember that South Park episode where they were talking about that. Stan goes to Stan goes to the bank, puts his money in the bank, and it just disappears. He's like, hey, where's my money? And then the guy goes, get out of this line. You don't have any money. It's gone. Well, I just gave it to you. Get out of this line. This line is for people who have money in the bank. Like, you remember that episode? Right? That's what, that's an example of what happens when the system collapses. Right? And what reason do I have to believe that whatever system comes afterwards is going to not only be better, but guarantee that all of the shit that I've spent my entire life earning is going to be there? Zero guarantee. And I don't personally don't believe that shit's going to happen. So kind of went off on a tangent, but that's why I don't buy into accelerationism. Right? Because I actually have shit to lose. I don't want the system to collapse. Okay? I want the system to work for everybody. That's what I want. I want a system that helps people who are born without access to wealth, right? Or, education and stuff. I want those people to have the same type of access to education, right? To healthcare, to the minimum, basic needs that are met: food, shelter, medicine, right? That's what I want, right? I don't care. I don't even want to make everybody rich. I don't think everybody should be rich. I don't have a problem with there being super rich people and super poor people. I don't care about that. As long as the poor people are not like in the fucking streets begging, digging through garbage to fucking survive, I don't have a problem with that. If you're poor and you have a place to live and you have food, then that's, I think the basic minimum that we should be doing. You're poor, that's fine, it sucks, but you're not starving to death. You're not dying of a fucking disease that we have cures for, right? Or whatever, right? You're not dying of cancer because you can't afford to get the shit treated. Something like that. You're not starving. You're able to go to school. That's it. I don't see anything wrong with providing those basic needs for people. Because it allows people then, if you have those needs met, it allows you to focus on, bettering yourself, right? And actually going out and making a living and doing something that helps the world, whatever that is, whatever job it is you decide to get. If you want to start business, if you want to even, not everybody can be an entrepreneur. That's another thing too. Not everybody has the drive or the will or the education or even the want, the desire to own a business. Some people just want to do their jobs, go work their fucking job, come home, watch TV, whatever. And that's absolutely fine. And we should allow people to do that. Not everybody is fucking Elon Musk or Henry Ford or, whatever, Bill Gates or, not everybody has this giant vision of how they're going to change the fucking world or whatever. Some people just want to watch football or come home and watch The Mandalorian or, have their family and shit and have a nice fucking quiet life where they're not bothering anybody. And they just want to fucking work someplace that provides all the shit that they need. And that's absolutely, we should allow for that as well in the country, right? People who want that should be able to make enough to survive, without having to worry about being out on the street because, of XYZ, right? I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's where I'm pretty much saying. So that I support myself personally, any policies that help that to happen. I mean, I don't really care. I don't care. If tomorrow I woke up and there was a fucking Marxist revolution and all the wealth got redistributed and we were able to actually meet those basic needs like that, I'm all for it. Right. Fine, let's do it. That's fine. I'll support any policy that actually helps people like that. If it turns out that it's hyper capitalism that provides for people's basic needs, then I'll support that too. So that's kind of where I'm standing here, But, this is why I don't support things like fucking, I don't support shit like fucking, accelerationism. Anyway, kind of went off on a tangent there. Went off on a long tangent. Where are we at? 142. Let's look at some of the, Let's look at some of the comments here. There were some comments that I got on my channel that I wanted to, check out. So let me show you guys this monitor here, because then I'm going to read these and then I'll go through and I'll read stuff that you guys put in the chat. This is on my channel here. This was on my hot take video for Donald Trump trying to talking about a military coup. This comes from Chronic Awareness. Chronic Awareness seems to have a problem with paragraphs and doesn't really seem to understand the idea of putting page breaks, line breaks in a paragraph to make it easier to read. But that's okay. I'm not here to insult Chronic Awareness's, grammar or sentence structure. I'm here to answer their questions. So let's read this super long-ass question and answer it. Okay, Chronic Awareness. Why is it that you think he's trying to steal the election and he's the bad one and he's corrupt and half of America thinks that, and the other half who supported him think the left stole the election, who's right? Well, the left is correct. The Democrats are correct because they got more votes. And that's how elections work. They got more votes, and not just the popular vote this time. They got more electoral votes too. And according to the Constitution, the guy who gets the most electoral votes wins the election. And that's why I think Trump is trying to steal the election, because he got less votes. In every single way that you can lose, he lost. That's why. All right. Moving on. Why don't you believe there was fraud, and why don't you believe there was fraud, and why do they believe there was fraud? People all right. God, that's, man, all right, see, it fucks me up when people don't capitalize their sentences and when they like repeat the same shit. See, you should have made this two sentences. All right, anyway, you should have made it two sentences and capitalized. Okay. Why don't you believe there was fraud? Because there wasn't any fraud. There wasn't any fraud because we've basically spent the last month with people picking through every single thing they could find, trying to find fraud, and they didn't find any. You know, especially now, it's been a month, right? They've had, like, investigators, they've had, like, you know, Donald Trump's fucking, like, legal team, all these people going to, like, every single state they can and investigating and finding all, you know, trying to find any instances of any kind of fraud at all. And the fact is, they haven't found any whatsoever. I think they did actually find an instance of somebody voting twice, and it turned out that guy was a Trump supporter. Let me just pull up that news story here so you know I'm not bullshitting you. Votes twice. Here we go. This is from Newsweek. Trump supporter admits voter fraud, says she voted twice for president in viral video. See, so we are finding instances of people of voter fraud, and it turns out there are instances of people who are committing voter fraud to help Donald Trump. All right, there have been no confirmed, proven instances of voter fraud in the scale that would change the election. You got to remember, and you know, you would have to prove hundreds of thousands of hundreds of thousands of instances of voter fraud in order to overturn the election, and there just hasn't been any proof like that at all. And if there was proof like that, if they had it, then Trump's legal team would have brought this before any court in the land, you know, especially the Supreme Court, and they haven't. And that's why they've lost over 60 court cases, you know, because every court case they have keeps getting thrown out because they don't have shit. So that's why I don't believe there was fraud, you know. And the reason why do the Trump supporters believe there was fraud? Because he lost. Because he lost, and they've tied being a Trump supporter into his identity, and they can't handle the fact that their boy lost, you know. They think it must be fraud because, you know, his rallies were so big and all this other shit. And it's like, you know, it's basically the reason why they don't believe there was fraud is because this is essentially a religion to them. You know, that's what it is. Anyway, people who on both sides, all right, this shit gets hard to read. People who on both sides, if nothing political was talked about or known about each other, would be friends and enjoy each other's company. Okay. I don't know. I personally don't hate Trump or like him. Bullshit. You like Trump. Don't give me that shit. I think he's a narcissist and arrogant. He grew up rich, always had money and power, but I do think he does care about the USA, and he does care about the people, even if it is for selfish reasons. I think he truly does not want to ruin the USA or let it get taken over by China or Russia, with both countries are loving the division. Oh, man. Man, run-on sentences like this, you know, you're putting like 17 different like points into one sentence. But just listen to what this person just said, okay? I don't like him. I think he's a narcissist and arrogant. He grew up rich, but he does care about the USA. He cares about the people. Why? Why would someone who's a narcissist, who grew up rich with money and power, who basically only gives a fuck about himself, and has a pattern of showing that he only cares about himself his entire life, why do you think that he would suddenly care about the United States and its people. Why? You know, there was a thing, Trump's lawyer, you know, what was that guy's name? Michael fucking whatever. The guy that's actually still in prison, you know, basically came out and said, like, so Donald Trump this last, you know, when he soft vetoed this bill and then went and played golf, right, while everybody's like, you know, unemployment was running out. Michael Cohen, that was his name. He said the same shit. He said that Trump used to do this every Christmas in his business, is that he would like give out the bonuses or lack of bonuses, and then he would just bail and not be available. So if you got a bonus and it was half of what you were expecting, or if you didn't get a bonus, something like that, there would be no way for you to complain to him. And he would do shit like this apparently. Like he would be like, okay, canceling all Christmas bonuses this year, jump on a plane, and then like go play golf and be unavailable for 4 days. And it's basically he's doing the exact same shit now. Does that sound like someone who cares about people? I mean, seriously, this is just one example from this past weekend. And we could think about literally hundreds of examples over the last 4 years of Donald Trump just not giving a fuck about people. You know, throwing people under the bus in a nanosecond. I mean, just look at, you know, the Attorney General, William Barr. You know, this guy goes to bat for Donald Trump for the entire year, just does everything he fucking wants, sends people out on, like, he sends government agents and, you know, officers out into the streets to arrest people, you know, at Donald, you know, who are like protesting and shit at Donald Trump's whim, at his command. You know, Bill Barr, like, for example, another example is when Donald Trump, you remember, like, when he wanted to go do that photo op with the Bible and he's holding the Bible upside down and shit. Bill Barr orders, like, those protesters moved from there with tear gas and crap like that, and then, of course, lies about it afterwards. So a bunch of, like, you know, federal officers go in and start beating people, shooting them with tear gas, you know, including the fucking pastor who, like, ran that church so Donald Trump could walk across the street and take a picture with a Bible upside down. That was Bill Barr, you know. Bill Barr is basically fucking doing everything possible to kiss Trump's ass and does everything that he wants the whole time he's there. You know, another thing that he fucking did was, you know, when the Mueller report came out, and Bill Barr, like, basically came out 2 days beforehand and told everybody there was nothing in it, when in real life there was. You know, that's what Bill Barr was there for. Bill Barr was there to basically run interference and make Trump look good. And then finally, you know, when Bill Barr says, no, I'm not going to help you steal the election, Trump just throws his ass under the bus. And now Bill Barr's gone. Bill Barr has resigned because of this. Because this arrogant fucking man-child didn't get what he wanted. You know, like a goddamn baby. So someone that's basically just essentially ruined his future political career. No one's going to ever take Bill Barr seriously ever again after this. Right? His you know, career in the government's over with now. Basically, he, like, ruined his career for Donald Trump. Donald Trump just kicked him to the curb. You know, the nanosecond that he didn't play ball. That's the kind of person Donald Trump is. So why do you think that he cares about the fucking USA? He obviously doesn't. Okay, moving on. Anyway. Chronic awareness. It is hard to believe Biden won by so much. The record of any president, I think, 50 million more than Obama, and Trump setting records as well, most of his party even having the most black votes for the party, which is something to consider. Well, the only thing that matters is who got more votes. See, this is another point that you're hearing from people all over the place. Donald Trump got the most votes of any sitting president. Yeah, well, his opponent, Joe Biden, got like almost 10 million more votes than he did. Let's take a look. Let's go up here. Let's go to 2020 election popular vote totals. Right. Popular vote tracker. Let's see how many votes everybody got. Let's see. 158 million votes counted. Joe Biden, 81,281,520. Donald Trump, 74,222,593. So, what is that? 7 million more votes? Right. So yeah, that's what matters. What matters is who got the most. It doesn't matter that he, is the most votes for any standing president. Take a look back at all of the other elections for the past 50 years. Every election has the most number of votes ever. And it's because the population goes up, right? Every president that wins gets the most number of votes ever. You know, I think the one exception to that is that Donald Trump got less than Barack Obama. All right, because it's dumb. This is a dumb talking point. Anyway, moving on. Why did so many blacks vote Republican Trump, given the media saying he's racist and supports KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists? Why? Because there are such things as black conservatives. See, it's wrong to assume that your skin color ties you to a political ideology. That's just not true. There's literally thousands, if not, well, I wouldn't say millions. There's probably hundreds of thousands of black Trump supporters specifically, and there are millions of black Republicans. Because black people are not a monolith, right? They're different people that believe in different things. It's not like there's a black guy and every black guy is exactly the same as every other black guy. No, that's not true at all. That's dumb to assume. There are rich black people. There are poor black people. There are conservative black people, right? There are Christian black people. There are Buddhist black people. They're just like because they're just normal people like everybody else. So, why did Donald Trump get a bunch of black people that voted for him? Because there are black people who vote Republican and who are Trump supporters. Now you can think about, well, why are they Trump supporters? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like I wouldn't vote for the fucking person that is basically fucking, the linchpin firebrand for white supremacist hate groups in the country. I would never fucking do it, but I can't talk for anybody else but me. So yeah, it's that's the thing. That has nothing, and also the fact that black people voted for him has nothing to do with Donald Trump's racist dog whistles to people like neo-Nazis and the Proud Boys and shit like that. That has nothing to do with it. All that means is that those black people that voted for him are either unaware of that or they're okay with it. And that seems kind of hard to believe, doesn't it? That somebody would be okay with that? Well, apparently they are. Maybe they think it's fake news. Who knows? I can't, you can't talk for, I don't know. Who knows, right? Anyway, to say there was fraud is a straight up lie. There's always fraud, and you could YouTube search videos of people in court in court being sentenced for voting fraud. Yeah, YouTube videos are not evidence of fraud, right? If you need... See, the reason why Donald Trump's legal team has lost 60, court cases is because they don't have any proof, okay? There is no proof. Going into a court case, you can't go into a court case and put on a YouTube video and be like, here's your proof. That's bullshit, right? You have to actually have some actual real proof, right? Even an affidavit isn't enough. So what an affidavit is basically a signed statement saying I saw XYZ, right? And not all affidavits, by the way, can be held to perjury. So when they say shit like, oh yeah, you can get arrested if you lie in an affidavit, that's not necessarily true. That's only applicable in certain cases, right? And it kind of shows you the reason why they didn't bring most of these up in front of a judge is because most of them were bullshit. You had affidavits of people saying stuff like, I heard some people over there cheering, right? Well, that doesn't prove anything. You heard some people over there cheering, so what? Another one was, well, there was a black man there with a Black Lives Matter t-shirt counting votes. So, how do you know? What does that mean? Does that mean that they cheated? How the fuck does that mean that they cheated? That doesn't make any sense. Or, I saw a guy bringing a wagon into the room, so you don't know what was in the wagon, right? There could have been fucking bottled water in there for people. These are the kinds of things you're getting in these affidavits. They don't make it, seriously, look up, there's a list of them. I can't remember exactly what the page was called, but there's a list of all of these court cases and the reason why each one of these court cases got thrown out. Please check that out. If I can find it, I'll put it in the thing after the video publishes. It's ridiculous the kind of shit these people were claiming as, like, you know, in these affidavits. They're fucking dumb, and that's the reason why they keep losing these cases. So anyway, you know, it happens. The question is, if there was enough fraud to make a difference in who won. I'm sure there's voter fraud pro-Trump as well. Yeah, as we've just demonstrated, there is. As we've just shown that there are people who are admitting to voting twice for Donald Trump. Funny how we haven't found any of those, you know, who are saying they voted for Joe Biden. And even if there were, there would have to be 7 million of them, right? You know, in order for this to make a difference here. There would have to be 7 million, you know, confirmed instances of voter fraud in order to turn this election. That's bullshit. There isn't. You know, give it up. You fucking lost. But I think it's probably a lot less than the Oh, God. So, when I was in 8th grade, I had an English teacher that said anybody who spells a lot like this gets an instant fail for the class. I'm not joking. Yeah, this is real. A guy who said if you spell a lot like this, you fail the class. So, I don't know. Anyway, a lot less than the anti-Trump fraud. Probably a lot less. Well, you don't know. See, probably isn't good enough. All right. It doesn't matter what you think or what's more probable. What matters is what can be proven. Okay. Can you prove that there was voter fraud? Yes or no? Not that there was probably voter fraud. Not that there was mathematical fucking formulas and shit that make it look like there was voter fraud. In real life, they don't. You know, not some fucking wacky ass, like, you know, insane person, you know, fucking citing an affidavit that has no basis in fucking reality. Do you have any proof of voter fraud? Because it's easy to prove voter fraud. You know how you prove voter fraud? You review the votes. You see if the person who is registered to vote, who casted that vote, right, actually exists, right? Do they live where they say they live? Okay. Do you see their name on more than one vote? This is how they catch voter fraud. See, voter fraud is actually something that's very easy to prove, because all you have to do is audit the votes, right? And you find out, is this person alive? You know, is it an instance of a dead person voting? Were they alive when they voted? Right? That counts. If you're alive when you vote and you were alive, and then the next day you get in a car accident and you die, your vote still counts. Okay, that's the law. All right. You know, did you die the day before and somebody voted for you? That doesn't count. That's fraud. Understand? Okay? Shit like that, you know. It's very easy to find this shit. And this is why there's only been something like 300 cases of voter fraud in the last 30 years. You know, it's like an extremely small number. And it's mostly from people who don't know they're committing it. That's what most voter fraud is. Somebody moves and they vote in a place that they didn't know that they had to re-register or something. You know, that's the majority of voter fraud cases, right? Somebody gets a ballot that isn't for them. You know, it's like their name is Henry J. Smith, and they get a ballot for Henry P. Smith, and then they vote using that ballot. That's a case, you know, of mistaken identity, something like that. And then there's also another very small number of people who do it on purpose. You know, guys who will get their ballot for their grandmother who died, and then they fucking fill it out and send it in anyway. Right. Very, very extremely small number of cases like that. You know, something like literally 300 since like fucking, you know, since like, or not even 300. I think it was something like under 1,000 since like fucking 1980. Extremely small. So all of this shit that you hear about, yeah, the bus loads of illegal immigrants going from polling station to polling station and voting, that's complete total 100% grade A baloney, right? There's no proof of any of that shit whatsoever, you know. And it's all bullshit, you know. It's all bullshit to like that Republicans use in order to pass fucking laws to stop people from voting. They take these ridiculous horseshit conspiracy theories, and then they do stuff like, oh well, we need fucking voter ID laws in order to stop, you know, voter fraud. When in real life, all that really does is suppress the vote, right? Because Republicans like it when less people vote, because that means they win the election. Seriously. Anyway. Moving on, I personally think people hate Trump so much they don't care about fraud. Wait, what? I personally think that people hate Trump so much they don't care about fraud. They would do it if it gets him out. That's bullshit. And thankfully, we didn't have to have that to happen. I think they stole the election in 2016, so why not steal it back? Wait, so you think they stole the... Wait, they think he stole the election in 2016, so why not steal it back? Well, did you see in 2016, yes, there were lots of people on the copium back in 2016 who were very pissed off and melted down when Donald Trump won. Did you see them advocating for Barack Obama to use the military to redo the election and elect Hillary Clinton? Did you see that happen? Hillary Clinton conceded within a week, I think. I think it wasn't that night. It was within a week of the election she conceded. Isn't that true? It is, right? What are we going on? 30 days now? More than 30 days? Right? What? It was, 6 weeks at this point, or something like that. Donald Trump still hasn't conceded, right? Did Hillary Clinton go on a raging tweet storm screaming about how the shit was stolen? All that stuff, right? In 2016, there actually was some evidence of some vote manipulation, There was evidence. I mean, if you guys remember all that shit, there was evidence of Russian interference in the election, right? And maybe not so much vote manipulation, but definitely they were kind of stoking the fires there, and using their fucking Russian like Twitter bots and troll farms and shit to influence the election. As far as I know, there wasn't any actual proof of actual votes being messed with, right? But we do know that there were definitely Russian troll bots and shit online supporting the Republicans there. How much that actually contributed to a Trump win, there's no way of measuring, but it's probably greater than zero, That was part of, part of the reason why, for example, Paul Manafort went to prison was partially because of that. Okay, so yeah, there was more interference in the 2016 election for Donald Trump than people like to admit, But still, did the Democrats kind of go on a 2-month-long fucking crybaby session, over that? No, they didn't. Hillary Clinton didn't fucking... She gracefully conceded and faded away into the background, which is what you're supposed to fucking do when you lose, She didn't go on a crazy fucking 2-month-long crybaby session trying to get people to fucking steal it for her. No, she didn't. So don't feed me this fucking bullshit, Chronic Awareness. And seriously, all right? Because I have a memory. I remember this stuff. I don't know if you don't. That's too bad, but I do. All right. Maybe I'm wrong, and I am open-minded to the possibility, and the reason Trump lost wasn't, no apostrophe, because Biden was so great. No one even cares about Biden. It's just to vote Trump out. Yeah, you're correct there. The reason Donald Trump lost wasn't because of Biden. It was to vote Trump out. And that is reflected in the fact that plenty of Republicans in Georgia, for example, and other southern states, voted against Donald Trump, but then proceeded to vote Republican down ballot. So, for example, in Georgia, the two Republican senators that are running, Loeffner and the other person, they actually were ahead in the last election. They had the majority of votes, and it's only because it was so close that it automatically triggers a runoff, right? So that means that yes, people in Georgia, as just using them as an example, voted no for Donald Trump, then went down to the senators and voted for the Republican senators. So that means that it wasn't just Democrats who got Donald Trump elected. It was Republicans as well. It was conservatives, right? That kind of shows you not all of them were Trump supporters. So it's like that if that's not, a repudiation on Trump, then I don't know what is. That's basically saying I'm still conservative. I believe in all the other ridiculous horseshit conservative bullshit, but this guy's too crazy for me, so I'm getting rid of him. So yes, chronic awareness, you are right. No one cared about Biden. It was just to vote Trump out. You're absolutely right. Moving on. Which is hypocritical because they say Trump's racist and Biden could easily be argued to be just as racist as Trump. What does that have to do with the fucking election? Who cares? But the left won't touch that because it doesn't go with the whole plan. Okay? If Trump's racist for things he has said, Biden should be definitely just as racist. That's why people don't believe CNN and MSNBC, because they think the same way. They see the hypocrisy in the narrative ends with an S that turns them off to everything. Even if it's real news even if it's real news, that one fake news or double standard might make them lose trust. Yeah, dude, please, for the love of fucking God, put a period in a new sentence. Because this is all one sentence here. Like, starting from all the way up here, that's one sentence. Like, all of this. It's like, dude, goddamn, buddy. Anyway. Yeah, that's the thing about it. Okay, yes, no, maybe. It doesn't matter. Like, it really honestly doesn't matter. Okay, so Biden's racist just as Trump is racist. Who cares? Who cares, right? The election was about Trump. And, we'll deal with Biden as the time goes on. Because, this shit's obviously not over. We're not all just going to go to sleep. And if Joe Biden says racist shit, then he'll be held accountable for it too. And that's just how it works. The struggle continues. You continue to fight on. You don't just because the guy that you voted for gets elected, you don't just suddenly just fucking forget about it and never be politically active. It's like, no, you continue onwards, right? And yeah, there are plenty of people that hate Joe Biden because of shit that he's said in the past or things he's done in the past. But, apparently the majority of Americans believe him to be the better guy, the better choice there, right? See, here's the thing, right? It's not all about, like if you look at what this guy is saying here, right? The way that he's framing it, let's turn this off because this is giving me a fucking headache. So maybe turn off this fucking comment. Anyway, I wanted to get through this comment here. You can see this is the kind of shit I deal with. These are the kind of comments I get on my channel, right? But I wanted to respond to this dude because, a wall of text, and I told him I would. Anyway. But let's, one last thing I want to kind of say about this, and it's may be a little hard to organize this statement. Like, how do I communicate this correctly? It's not all about, I guess, all right, if you look at what that guy just said, Trump is racist, but so is Biden, right? So why does that, first off, what does that have to do with Trump losing the election? Nothing. Secondly, what is he trying to say here? Is he trying to say that people voted for Biden because they think Trump's racist, so why would they vote for him? Because Biden's also racist? It's not all about brand. See, that's the thing. This guy's thinking about this like it's a branding sort of thing, like Trump's brand is that he's a racist and that he's conservative, ultra conservative, and that, and anybody who's against these, this is the only reason why people vote, because that's kind of how conservatives vote. Conservatives are very one or two issues, The vast majority of conservatives really only vote for two issues. Those issues being abortion and gun control. That's it. That's the only reason why conservatives really vote. Some of them will vote for tax cuts, but a very small third place. The main reason the rank and file, it's because they want to stop abortion and they want to keep the Second Amendment. That's it, right? And he doesn't understand, he thinks that people on the left only vote for one issue also, being, racism, anti-racist stuff, right? And it's not like that at all. It's like people on the left vote for a million reasons, because people on the left are very diverse. There is no unifying issue that unites everyone on the left. Some people vote because they want, universal health care. Some people vote for environmental reasons. Some people vote for privacy reasons. They'll support whatever candidate is, the privacy candidate, right? Stop government spying and shit like that, right? Online, some people, and then you're also allowed to have different stances on different issues as well. You're allowed to care about more than one thing. Net neutrality is another one. War in the Middle East, right? Militarism, fucking raising taxes on rich people. There's a million issues out there. It's like most people on the left don't confine themselves to just one or two issues, right? And it's all about, you compromise on things too. It's like, okay, well, this particular candidate, Joe Biden, for example, doesn't care about, Medicare for all, right? Doesn't care about universal health care. In fact, he's even come out and said shit like, if a universal health care bill comes across my desk, I'll veto it, right? So, yeah, okay, but what about the other issues that he stands for, the other things that he supports, right? His environmental policy, for example, is probably the most progressive environmental policy of any presidential candidate ever, right? And it's actually just that alone is really good. So it's like, no, just because, so yeah, Joe Biden said some racist shit in the 80s and supported a bill that was like ultimately, a crime bill that ultimately put a lot of black people in jail, and most likely had some institutional racist motivations behind it, right? Does that mean that, everyone on the left is just going to like instantly label him like, he's a Nazi and just not for, no, that's not how it works, It's like we have a diverse number of opinions. I'm sure some people probably didn't vote for him for those reasons, but other people did because the other things he brings to the table, are things that they can support, right? And that's the problem with this sort of, mentality, like this sort of ultra hyper partisan tribalism mentality. That's what this guy has. This guy, Chronic Awareness, that comment I was just reading. That's what that guy has. This ultra hyper partisan tribalism, where it's like you either believe this or that. You're either like, one of us or one of them. It's like, no, man, in real life there's a million shades of gray. And I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to read that guy's comment because, I said I would. And answering stuff like that in the comment section is kind of useless. It's like, I'm going to type all this shit. He's not going to fucking read it anyway. But he might actually watch this because it's about him. So that's why I want to respond to that. Let's read through some of the comments here. It's about, shit, we're at, goddamn, 2:15 already. I have to go do some shopping because I ran out of yogurt. I eat a yogurt every morning, so I have to go get more yogurt. But let's read through some of the comments here. Dynacat loves me. I still smoke. I quit around 30. Lasted 2 weeks. Yeah, I was, I think I was 29 when I quit. So I started when I was 18, and then I quit when I was 29. Man, if you want to quit, this is what I did. And I don't know if this will work for you or not, but I could just kind of, this is what I did. So I waited until I had a 4-day weekend, which I think was, it was, God, when was it? I think it was Memorial Day, right? And that particular year, it worked out like Memorial Day was on a Thursday, so my job just gave us Friday off. So, I think it was that. But anyway, it was a 4-day weekend. And all I really did was I just didn't get out of bed for like 4 days straight. So, Thursday came around and I just slept. And I just slept it off. And I just got up to go to the bathroom and eat lunch and dinner. And then I just went right back to sleep. Right. Because I know how it is, man. Yeah, quitting smoking was, I mean, this was like the third time I tried to quit, right? And yeah, the shit is not easy. It's extremely hard, so I understand you know, you get that sort of cold burn. Like for any of you out there who've never smoked, and you don't know what we're talking about, when you try to quit smoking, you get, first off, you get like this anxiety kind of thing. You get like these little shakes. Like seriously, like you feel like a junkie. It sucks, and you start getting irritable, and then like you start sweating and all this other crap, and it's like it's actual physical reactions from like your body craving nicotine, and you start like getting pissed at little tiny things, stuff like that, and you're fucking, and then if it keeps going on, your head will start hurting, you know, all of this. And for some people it's worse than others, depending, I mean, however much you smoke. At one point I used to smoke a pack and a half a day, although a lot of that was my big brother stealing them from me. My brother used to smoke like fucking way more than I did, and he'd just gank all my smokes, and I'd have to like, basically, I would just leave the house. He'd start stealing my cigarettes, and I'd just go for a walk, and because he would seriously take all of them. But anyway, different story. Yeah, so it gets bad, and so I just sort of just slept. I just detoxed. I just got up. I would get up, take a shower, eat some breakfast, go to bed, and just nap, and then turn on like a fucking cheesy horror movie or something, and for 4 days straight, slept, right? Then on Monday, I was feeling pretty good, and I didn't, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna have a cigarette. This is it. I quit, right? And the big test was when I went back to work, because I used to work at the time I was doing quality assurance for software, right? So all the people on my team used to smoke too, and we would go out every day, and like, my boss smoked, right? And we would go out every day and have, cigarette breaks. He'd be like, all right, cigarette break, and we'd all go, right? And the big test was that Monday, my boss goes, all right, cigarette break, we all go outside, and they all light up, and I have to sit there and watch them smoke. And he goes, oh, Mark, you having one? I'm like, I quit. And then this is what happened. So, because my boss was actually one of my good friends that, I used to hang out with and stuff back in the day. So, like, me and him were kind of like buddy, right? And this is what started happening. So he starts making fun of me, and he's like, you quit, right? And he starts smoking. He's like, oh, God, it tastes so good. And then he'd like be blowing it in my face and shit, and like, come on, you want one, and, because this is what we would do to each other whenever one of us tried to quit. The other one would just taunt them like crazy until they like gave up. Right? That was the big test. And I was like, no, man, this is it. I quit for real. I don't care, And I gave him my pack of cigarettes. I'm like, here, man, it's yours. I don't want them anymore. And then everybody would just laugh at me and be like, oh, Mark quit. And you just gotta, and that's when the real willpower comes in. And you just gotta stick with it, And I did notice that after that, I gained like 20 pounds, like a lot, because I just started eating, That was fucked up. So that's another thing you gotta watch out for. I think I finally managed to lose all that. As of this morning, I weigh, well, actually, I went up a little bit because of Christmas. I got all the way down to 189 pounds from 230. And then as of this morning, I'm back up to 191. So, because we just had like Christmas dinner and shit. So, kind of put a little bit back on there. I'm going to have to like start counting my calories and shit again. But anyway, that's my quitting smoking story. So, if I can do it, you can do it, man. You just gotta, you gotta have that willpower, and you just gotta believe, right? All right, let's see. Moving on. Trump isn't the penguin, that's Rudy. Trump as Jabba the Hutt has already been done, I think. That's all I'm for dystopia. Yeah, maybe we should do that. Maybe we should just start drawing pictures of Donald Trump as different comic book villains and shit. Kind of running out of time. He's going to be gone in a month here, so, it's not going to be relevant anymore. So I should do it before he leaves office, I guess, huh? Dinah Cat. Let's see. Onward to Dystopia. Bernie had to have penis reduction surgery. It's a very serious issue. Don't laugh. Oh, yeah. Um, Dinah Cat. Sometimes the strength is giving up. I think that's when we were talking about Bernie Sanders. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Bernie is that, he's tenacious, but he doesn't like. I guess why I wanted to bring that up is because he's never been that sort of sore loser. You notice he doesn't talk shit about other politicians like ever, especially people like other Democrats. Like they'll be like I remember like back in 2016 when like there was this big rift between the Bernie people, the Bernie Bros or whatever, and like the Hillary people, which most likely contributed to her losing the election. You know, and Bernie Sanders himself never came out and said anything negative about the Hillary campaign at all. He never said anything negative about Hillary. He never came out and claimed that they stole it from him because they fucking did. I don't know if you remember 2016. The Democratic establishment basically fucking stole that nomination from Bernie. Right? But he himself never came out and said anything like that at all. And because he understood that it's not always about winning. It's like, okay, maybe he got screwed, but is he going to then burn it all down just because he didn't win? No. He understood the greater need to, if he was, and also he understood that if he was going to have any sort of political future at all, these are the people that he has to play ball with. That's another thing. So, and that's kind of, it's like compare that to Trump's reaction to losing the election. It's like it's apples and oranges. There's one because one of them is an adult and another one is the other one is a spoiled fucking child that, anyway. Moving on. I'm going to have to cut this a little short, so I'm just going to kind of skim through the rest of the comments here, guys. Sorry. Let's see. Onward to Dystopia. When Pence said they want to make the rich poorer and the poor more comfortable, that's all you need to really know about these people. Yeah. I mean, because if you look, yeah, I know. I actually watched a couple of videos like about the Young Turks and stuff talking about this. And one of the points they brought up was like, Pence didn't say make the poor rich. He said make them more comfortable. So that's a little different, like, because you think, that quote, it makes you think of Robin Hood, steal from the rich, give to the poor. Right. But he didn't say, they want to, they want to make the rich poorer and then the poor rich. No, he said they want to make the poor more comfortable. It's like, and that kind of implies, that says a lot about his worldview. Pence's worldview. Now remember, Mike Pence is supposed to be a conservative Christian person, right? And conservative evangelical Christians are supposed to give money to charity. They are supposed to help the poor because this is what Jesus Christ calls them to do. The message is pretty clear in the Bible. It's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter heaven. And he who gives to the least among you gives to me, or whatever, that kind of thing, right? I'm paraphrasing that one because I don't really know the actual quote, but essentially Jesus Christ basically says, give to poor people, don't be a rich, stingy piece of shit. That's Jesus Christ, right? And Mike Pence's worldview is leaking through here, and it's incompatible with Christianity, right? And it's because basically Mike Pence is saying, if you're poor, you deserve it. That's what he's basically saying. And it's this sort of weird kind of pseudo, it has a lot more to do with Southern kind of American culture than it does the tenets of actual Christianity. It's like what Christianity has kind of been perverted into, this sort of gospel, I think they call it the prosperity gospel. This idea that the idea goes like this. Okay, if God likes you, if you're a good Christian, then that means God likes you, and if God likes you, He's going to shower you with blessings on earth. right? And if you're, so that means if you're rich, that means God must like you, right? That means that you must be a good Christian because you're getting blessings you're getting monetary, material blessings in this earth. Even though in the Bible it doesn't say anything about that at all. It says the exact opposite. It says you will get your rewards in heaven, not on earth. And the people who are rewarded on earth are not going to get their rewards in heaven. That's what it says in the goddamn Bible. But according to these guys, it's like, oh, so that means Donald Trump was born rich, so God must really like him, you know. And if you give your money to the church, it's, you know, if you plant your seed, you know, because there's a parable that in the Bible where Jesus says some shit about like you know, the parable about growing your faith, and he uses a farmer as an example, and the master leaves, and then the servant who increases the master's, you know, yield gets rewarded the most. This is I can't remember the exact you know, book in the Bible that it's in, you know, like so I can't really quote it, but it's basically the passage that they use to claim that, you know, Jesus Christ was in favor of capitalism. This is no joke. I'll have to look this up. And it might be interesting to do a whole stream on this one of these days, you know. But anyway, this is where the prosperity gospel comes from, right? And, you know, so Pence is basically saying there, you know, these guys are poor, so God hates them, so fuck these people. That's what he's basically saying. And it kind of really shows how perverted the message actually is. Because, you know, I mean, I'm not a religious person. I'm really agnostic. You know, I'm not a Christian, right? Agnostic at most. I don't even, I'm not even really sure that God actually exists. I'm just sort of, you know, I'm of the position personally that it's unknowable. And to say one way or the other is not provable either way. So ultimately it doesn't matter because we're all going to find out eventually. You know, after we die, we're all gonna be there. You know, rich, poor, black, white, everybody. We're all going, you know, one place or the other place, or maybe no place. We'll all find out after we die. So as far as I'm concerned, it's sort of, you know, not a thing that I should like base my life on, because it's inevitable anyway. As far as I'm concerned, it's like, well, we'll find out. And, you know, but it doesn't seem logical to me. I could put it that way. You know, a lot of what not just Christians believe, but a lot of just religion, the idea of religion in general, doesn't seem logical to me. But maybe we'll explore that at a different time. You know, but anyway, yeah, it's very you know, the prosperity gospel. It's essentially a perversion of, you know, it's a perversion of Christian belief in order to support rich people. Rich people, and it's bent out in such a way so that it basically supports like that kind of southern conservative culture, you know. And it's horseshit that they can tell themselves at night so they don't think that they're going to go to hell for, like, you know, cutting aid to people during, for example, a pandemic, for example, or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. You know, getting one more thing before we move on. I've been rather loath to make religious videos on this channel, like atheist videos, stuff like that, because I'm not an atheist really, you know, but I'm not a believer in pretty much anything, and so it's not really what my channel's kind of been about. But it is relevant though to kind of the you know, like people's religious beliefs and things. They are kind of relevant to the soul of this nation, you know. It's like, yeah, the country is not a Christian nation, but a hell of a lot of the people in the country are Christians. And it maybe we should make some, you know, a live stream here or there talking about religious shit like this. And or maybe something like, you know, we could still talk about politics, but the politics of religion. Maybe that's the politics of conservative Christian religion or something. I don't know. Maybe it's something to think about. I'll think about it. I mean, you know, because we're going to have to get some kind of content, after Trump leaves office and is gone finally. What am I going to talk about? Like, I was looking back at all my old videos since 2017. I've been looking at my videos, and it's like the vast majority of them are like me in one way or another complaining about Donald Trump. Right? So I'm gonna have to come up with a new shtick here, now that he's gonna be gone. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of good stuff here in the chat, you guys. I think I gotta end this. Great commentary. One more from James Brooks. Thank you, James Brooks, for joining. Great commentary. Any recommendations on dealing with QAnon conspiracy theory supporting parent that believes there will be a civil war next month and that Trump will be elected president again? Dealing with the parent? Wow. All right, I think this will be the last one, and then we're going to end this. How to deal with... wow. Okay. It depends. I mean, do you live at home with your parent? Because if you don't live with your parent, it's a lot easier. I can just tell you in general, not living at home with your parents makes your relationship with them 1,000 times easier. Because it allows you to basically set the parameters of the relationship. So that's the biggest advice I can give you. If you're having trouble with your parents, right, and you have the means to, then leave. Right. And I understand that during a pandemic, it's probably impossible to do that, But also, I mean, if you're younger, whatever, you don't have any money, and you're forced to live with them, that's another thing. So the other way is, I would recommend, I mean, I don't know, your parents better than anybody. So that's up to your judgment to make, right? If you're dependent on them, it's generally not a good idea to piss them off too much, because you don't want to get thrown out of the house or whatever. So, I mean, I would say like, yeah, okay, so you're an adult. Fortunately, I'm an adult. Haha. Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I would say like if you were a kid or something, I would say basically just kind of suck up and don't say anything. That's what I would say. Like if you were like 16 or something, stuck living at home with your parents and like, and they were insane or whatever, but you don't have a choice. It's like, yeah, just nod and agree is what I would say. And then, But if you're an adult, well, and you don't live with them, then, it's really up to you as to... The great thing about being an adult when it comes to your parents is that you get to set the parameters of your relationship, right? So my relationship with my parents, especially my father, has increased a bazillion times in the positive direction since I became an adult. Right. I can say that for sure. When I was a teenager, when I was a young man, when I was a kid, we'd fight all the time, shit like that. Whatever. And it was really shitty. And now that I'm an adult and, my dad lives in another state actually, and I see him on holidays and I can talk to him when I want to talk to him. So, that's the, and that way when we actually do talk or whatever, we got good things to say to each other because, absence makes the heart grow fonder and all that stuff, right? If your parents are kind of going over a little bit on the deep end, well, so one thing is, your parents want you to respect them, right? So depending on your relationship with them, you can kind of subtly hint at different things. Like, it depends on your approach, right? And I don't know, you can make this judgment best, whether you want to confront them directly and just be like, no, Dad, this is all bullshit. That's one way of taking it, but whether or not you think that'd be effective or, that might start a fight if you want to start I mean, you might not want to go that route. Another way that, I found that's been effective myself is just to kind of subtly drop hints about different things. So your parent, let's say it's your dad. I don't know who it is, but let's say it's your dad and your dad's a QAnon person, right? So one thing you can do, like say, for example, on Facebook, is start linking to things that are about the start linking to articles and books and things that are about the mindset of conspiracy theorists. Hand hurts, right? So you could be like, hey, look at this article I found on the psychology behind conspiracy theorists and how it's like, compares to like drug addiction or something. Right? Shit like that. And it's like, well, you're basically saying, hey, look, without straight up accusing them, or other things, you can start linking to shit that debunks that stuff. But you can frame it in such a way that makes it sound like you're still open-minded. Like, hey, Dad, yeah, like, remember that article you posted last week about how, Donald Trump was going to do this, this, and that. Well, here's maybe that's not, maybe that's disinformation. That's another way you can frame it. You could frame it like you're on his side, but you're just trying to get him the super secret info yourself. Maybe this guy's a disinformation agent, Dad. It turns out what he was claiming was bullshit. Right? So that's another method. So, there's ways like, depending on how you want to confront them, because ultimately, your parents want you to believe them. Your parents want you to respect them, right? And they ultimately are trying, at least if they're normal, ordinary, functioning parents like, normal people are supposed to have, then they think that what they're doing is, the best for your benefit as your child. Even that doesn't stop when you grow up, when you become an adult. You never stop being their son. So they're always going to, it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 50 years old. They're always going to still be your parent. They're always going to want to do what they think is best for you. So if your dad is sharing insane, I don't know if it's your dad or your mom or whatever, if they're sharing insane weird shit on Facebook or something, and to you, it's because they want you to have this info. You know what I mean? Like, they think that this is like shit you need to know, right? So, you could just sort of start manipulating the conversation in such a way that, maybe the stuff isn't always that true, right? And like, for example, link to an article talking about Alex Jones and how he's like faking it. Right? Stuff like that. You could start dropping those hints, and maybe, maybe that'll have an effect, and your parent might start, because they probably won't read it. Here's the thing, right? If one of their friends or a guy that they're arguing with online in Reddit or something told them to like read this link, they wouldn't do it, right? But if you're their kid and you give them this link, they probably will read it, because this is my son, and they have this unconscious desire because they want you to respect them, right? And so they might actually read it. If you're the person that says to them, hey, Dad, this shit is off the rails, maybe you ought to check out this link here and see that, these people that you're getting this information from aren't on the level. Right. Maybe they might. So, I don't know. I mean, it's never easy. It's kind of, you got to think about it like in the same way. Like, imagine your father was in a weird ass cult. How do you deprogram him? Same kind of deal, right? So, anyway, guys, I gotta end this because I gotta go shopping before it's too late. But this is where we're at so far. Actually made kind of a lot of progress here. Looks pretty good, don't you think? I think we'll continue on with this for a little while. And, but I gotta end this. Plus, I'm thirsty as hell. Been talking for 3 hours straight. So it's kind of a long stream. We're at 2 hours, 45 minutes. So anyway, thanks you guys. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Danny Cat. And Onward to Dystopia. You guys are great, and I see you all the time in here. Thank you so much for your support, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Raph and Shoma. Thank you for coming. Good to hear from you, man. And thank you, James Brooks, for stopping in, too. You're great. This is probably going to be my last stream for 2020. I'm debating whether I should do one on New Year's night. Most likely will not. But if I do, I'll put it up a couple hours ahead of time so that you guys all know if I'm going to be online or not. I am going to go ahead and end this before I close it. I need to do my ending spiel. So this is my ending stuff. And one of these days, I think this will be a New Year's resolution. I'm just going to make a little video that I can play at the end of these streams that goes through all of my social media stuff. So that way I don't have to like do this ending thing every fucking time. Let's see here. All right, guys. So this here is my okay, let me go ahead and turn on my screen. Right monitor, bam. This here is my SD shop. If you like what I do and you want to support me, please consider buying something from my SD shop. I put up, these are all little prints and scrolls and things, you know what they are. Plus I'm starting to put like sculptures and crap on here too. So this one's really popular. This is a Lovecraft character. These are 11 by 17 prints that I use coffee and things like that to stain them. And they all come out a little different. Each one's unique. So if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something. I'll put the links in the comments after the video publishes. Thank you so much. So that's one thing. This here is my my DeviantArt site. So if you like my artwork and you want to see more of it, I have lots of artwork up here. Here's my webcomic, you know, and then plus some other things, and then I could show you some stuff in my gallery here. Here's an entire gallery of all these different sort of demon things that I draw, which are very similar to the thing I was doing today. So, you know, if you like this stuff and you want to see more of it, you know, here goes something I did. I think, how old is this one? I think this one's from, God, 2017, I think? I think it says on here somewhere when it was published, but... Oh, no, yeah, 2012? Holy fuck, that's like 8 years old. I gotta draw some more shit. Anyway. So yeah, if you like my artwork, please check me out on DeviantArt. This is my webcomic, homanja.com, fun for the whole stupid family. And it, you know, has ninjas and stuff like that, and kung fu, and people kicking each other in the face, that kind of thing. And then I also have another webcomic here called Dirty Kitchen Comics that you can access from the left. And this is a much more random sort of, you know, webcomic-y sort of thing. So that's at homanja.com. Please check that out. And my last thing here, this is my other YouTube channel. It's called UCD Videos, where I talk about toys and video games and that kind of thing. I do toy unboxings. I do some, you know, video game streams and talk about strange video game hardware, and I talk about movies and shit. So if you want to see me talk about, you know, some non-political stuff, check me out on UCD Videos. And I think that's pretty much it for today. So thank you once again, everybody, for joining. All you guys, be happy you survived 2020, and now we got 2021 to look forward to. So all you guys out there, have a happy new year, stay safe, and I will see you all next year. Adios.